Brett Perigo, tonight's second place finisher. Plenty of fans here, Brett, and a solid second place finish.
Yeah, I got to shout out the Turn 2 Terribles over there. They're all a bunch of good guys to hang out with, talk to. I really like them.
How are you doing tonight, man?
Hey, I'm talking here. You know who you're talking to? Macho Man! I'm on my way to Monday Night Raw.
Answer the second one.
Your choice.
It's a trap.
I feel like it is. I feel like he's setting up fights in the front stretch is what he's trying to do.
Speedway. We've got Devin Gordon with us.
At Keen Motorsports Shop here with Kyle Keen.
Sitting here with Sean Keen. We're going to talk a little bit about racing history.
Yep.
What's going on? It is Monday, May 5th, 2025. I am Jimmy here with Jay-Z. We are the Turn 2 Terribles. No Chris tonight. Sorry, Randy. We got a great show planned for you guys tonight. We have Hall of Fame driver Lance Dewease joining us. We're super pumped for this one. Very happy to have him join us. We'll bring him on in just a second. And then we will talk a little bit about World of Outlaws coming into town this week. And we got Lincoln now Wednesday, if you didn't see. And then Friday, Saturday, Morgan Cup at Williams Grove. We will talk about that, preview that a little bit, and much more. As always, thanks everybody so much for being in the chat. Santos, Steph, Matt, Randy, all you guys, thank you guys so much for being in. Sean Keen, what's going on? If you have any questions for Lance or for us, put them in the chat. We'll try to get to them. Any comments, anything like that, put them in the chat. We love hearing what you guys have to say. Jeremy, how are you doing tonight?
Man, I am pumped up. I'm ready to go. I was hoping it was race night eve. It is not. We're going to wait one more day, but hopefully we'll be there Wednesday.
I don't know how I have an echo. Says Matt. Thank you for letting me know that. Check. Do you have an echo still? I don't hear it anymore. I think we're good.
Can you still hear me okay?
Yeah, I still got you.
Okay, cool.
All right. So let's not delay any longer. Let's bring him on. Hall of Fame driver Lance Dewease. Lance, thank you so much for joining us tonight. How are you this evening?
Oh, I'm doing great. How you guys doing?
Great.
Awesome, man. I appreciate you so much taking some time out here for us. Hopefully, we didn't have much of a weekend of racing, so there's not too much to get done, hopefully, for racing. So, no, really appreciate you taking the time. Something we've wanted to do for a while, and either you've been busy at the racetrack. I try not to bother you all too much, or when you're going. So, I feel like I've watched a million interviews with you over the years, and a lot of people want to go back all the way to the beginning and talk about the history. And it's been a couple days you've been racing, so I kind of want to do something a little bit different, and I want to talk about more recent history. And a lot of the fans that are here watching, we have ages of all, but kind of know the more recent history. And I don't even know it all, to be honest. I remember watching, but I don't vividly remember a lot of it when I was younger. But anyway, tell us a little bit about your journey in this 12 car the last couple of years. It's been a little bit of an up and down. Feel like making some progress. There's been some good runs. Tell us a little bit about that journey last year too.
Well, last year was we come out of the box actually pretty fast last year as far as racing wise. We could race really good. We couldn't time good and put ourselves in position. We got tangled up in a wreck, bent that car, brought out another car. We weren't bad with it, but it was a different type of car. That one got caught up in a wreck and bent. So we kind of went through 3 different style cars last year, and we just kind of were chasing everything. We didn't time good. I raced pretty well most places. I was pretty happy with how we raced. We just couldn't get ourselves in a position, to be up front starting. And some of it was we've had some last year. Everything that could go wrong last year has gone wrong last year. So some of it's self-induced, some of it's just racing luck. But by the end of the year, we had some speed back. I was in position to win Tuxborough 50. I messed the race car up there pretty bad, and just didn't have the handling down for 50 laps. But all in all, at the end of the year, we kind of gained some stuff back. But this year, we kind of got, it was a new team for me, a new team for them as far as racing more races, trying to be competitive in the bigger shows. And, it just takes time to build. You don't do this stuff overnight. And especially with teams that don't have an open checkbook. An open checkbook helps a lot if you have it, but it's still a hard deal just to get teams to be competitive and get everything in pieces. And so last year, the end of the year, I felt like we did some testing in the end of the year with a different brand car. I raced better at the end of the year at BAPS. I felt like we had some speed. So over the winter, we just worked really hard on the areas I felt like we needed to be in. And I thought we were really good early in the year, except for we had some issues with some new parts that were in the car. And after the second or third race, we finally figured that out and got them off the car, and we've had speed and been pretty quick since then.
So, over the years, you've had many rides, and you've kind of done this thing where you've jumped in cars, and those cars were young teams. They didn't have a lot. You jumped in cars that had a lot and were established. Was there anything from those experiences you could kind of walk into with this, even though every situation's different? Were there things that you could bring along and say, hey, I've been through this before. Here's my suggestion, right? You're not the owner, but you're the driver, but may not be parts and pieces necessarily, but were there structure or processes that you could bring along based on your experience?
Well, yeah, you do that everywhere you go. One of the places I didn't have to do that was 69K, but that's Donald has been around a long time like me. Davey's been around forever, and their car was so good right from the start. There was really no struggle with that. But I've been fortunate enough to climb in some what people would call not top rated cars and win with them. And there was deals when I drove the 25P post pack that people didn't think we could win in that at all. We won Outlaw shows. I was leading feature winner the one year in PA with it. We just, I kind of grew up making all of my own calls, 90% of the time. And I just know where I need to be, feel wise. It's just a matter of getting it there. Sometimes it's hard. I know what a very, very good race car feels like, but it's hard to get it. It's not, it's just not a simple thing. You go do this, do that, and it's there. It's very hard to get it. And I feel like we're a lot closer right now this year than what we were last year with the 12 deal. Our speed is way better than what we were last year. At least, in hot laps, we're close to the top on the time chart. The Grove 2 times in a row, we've timed pretty good. But with that said, we'll find out this week on if we got speed or not.
So with that, all of last year, all the changes and tests and ups and downs and all the craziness, you also added a new crew chief this year. And have you worked with Jim in the past? Jim, right?
Yeah, Jim Schreiner. He come on here about a month before we start racing. Barry asked him to come along to help take a little bit of the load off me so I can, not have to worry about every single thing on the race car. And it's been pretty good so far. Me and Jim got along good. We've known each other a long, long time. So, it's not that big a thing. We never worked together, but we've known each other a long time. So it's not that big a deal. You just kind of figure out what each other likes to do. And, we've been, we do some things he likes, do some things I like. And we're quick at figuring out, that works, that don't work. And we're pretty quick at right now making changes, which is good. You can't just show up and expect be okay. And if you're okay, you can show up next week and might be all right, but might not. And it's a tough deal. I just, look at Anthony beginning the year. He was not fast at all anywhere they went. And that's one of the top teams in the country, one of the best drivers in the country. And, sometimes it just don't work and you have to figure it out.
It doesn't take much to fall off either side of it, right? Being really good and then also being, it not like awful, but it doesn't take much to slip to 6th, 7th, 8th, 10th, 12th in this game.
Oh no, the cars are so equal now. It's just crazy on how close everybody is. I go back to we were joking about it a little bit. I was talking to little Freddie after Baps, and he was in my flight with timed hot laps, and I felt like he wasn't getting away from me, but I felt like I really wasn't gaining on him either when we were doing our timed hot laps. I was 4 times faster than him. I would never thought that, because I really couldn't gain on him. So, and then you put Friday and Saturday when the Outlaws show up, 4/10 is 20 spots roughly.
Yeah, easily. Yeah,
easily. You might have one guy that's a little quicker than the others up front, but I mean, once you get back from 5th back, a 10th can cover 10 cars.
Yep.
So it's just really tough. You're cutting hairs. You're trying to do every little thing, and like you said, the good side and the bad side really ain't that far apart. It's not. And that's why you can skip right over it if you're not careful.
So one thing I noticed with the car at Port Royal, the Kaufman weekend, the attitude of the car looked very different than I'm used to seeing you in. It looked very left and front, and the wing angle was I imagining things, or did it have a little bit different? I don't need specifics, and I don't know a lot, but was it a little different feel than what you're used to as far as, or was I just seeing things?
Well, no, we've worked. I knew where at the end of the year last year, we knew where I need to get to. It's just a matter of getting in the car to do it. I've worked very, very hard on my shock package over the winter. Worked very hard on the cars. We've had that same attitude all year. The car has had the right attitude. It does the right things. Just early in the year at Port, the first 2 races or so, we had some parts on the car that really made the car do some stupid things. And we tried to fix that before we realized it was the parts that were causing it. And once we took those parts off, put the other normal parts on like we ran last year, the car just came to life. And since then, we've had speed on the clock. The car's got grip. Now it's just a matter of doing all the right things with it. And I felt like we've been pretty good. Port Royal, I tend to run that place pretty well anyhow when it gets slick, but I feel like we're getting a lot closer than what we were last year. I feel like we can be in the hunt this year, hopefully.
I stopped Williams Grove one night. I think it was, I don't know, one of the rain delays we had a bunch of weeks back. And Jim was standing there talking with someone, forgive me if they're watching, and just stopped by and was chatting. And one of the things that he mentioned that, think we've all talked about it, but it's a variable that we can't account for, is tires. And he used the example at Port Royal, maybe the week before, where the heat race didn't go great, and in the B you went from the middle of the B to the lead and pulled away and were gone. Put a new tire on for the feature and couldn't pass a race car and didn't change anything. Have you noticed that more and more lately? That now maybe you couldn't attribute it to a tire, but when you don't change anything and it's 20 minutes apart, have you noticed that more and more of something that you just can't predict, or does it have you chasing your tail more than you want?
I don't know. That's such a hard. I hear guys complain about the tires all the time. That's to me is so hard because you don't really know. If it was the tire changing the track conditions, did you just miss it? Yeah, I think Jim left a little bit out on that night. If it's the night I think he was talking about, is also we didn't get the bleeder plugged in, the right rear wheel. So we got real bad real quick, and just was, and I, from a driver's standpoint, I had no clue on why it was so bad. I mean, I was okay the first couple laps, kind of was racing around a car, kind of driving, get by them. And I felt like I was going to go by them. Then all of a sudden, I just kept getting worse and worse and worse and worse. And, we ran a lot of nonstop laps. And by the end, I was dead in the water. And I just really didn't have no idea. And then while I was changing, they told me that the bleeder was never plugged in, the right rear. And that's something that comes from, we were in the B main, we were rushing, they were trying to keep the shows moving. And that's just part of it. We all make mistakes, and the guys work really hard on the car. I trust them with everything, and it's just one of those things.
Because I'm only a keyboard warrior, as some like to say. When that happens and you don't have a bleeder, is there anything as a driver you can do if you didn't know it? But let's say you did know it. Is there anything you can do,
No.
or are you just disadvantaged?
No, it's just built in air pressure up as we go. There's just nowhere. I'm moving the wing all over the place trying to fix it. Don't fix it. It's just one of those things that it's part of it. It's better that it held air than not lose it, but
Not completely.
yeah,
You can at least roll around maybe and finish.
but it's still, we were just terrible, and that's just all part of it. I mean, we just missed it bad, but that kind of was. We still had some. That was race. We still had some parts on the car that wasn't right, and that was kind of the last race for him. And we got really good since then.
So you mentioned about a couple different car design. Was it chassis differences, or was it just a different build of the same chassis?
Well, last year we had, quote, they were all Eagles at the time, but they were different types of Eagles. And one was made in China. They had a before they went out of business, they had a China Eagle. Then they had an American-made Eagle. Then I switched to Schnee Lawson at the end of the year, and we got faster, but it was a really tight car. We struggled with it a little bit. We actually got it rolling the night before Tux 450, and I give all the credit to my son. My son, I kind of let him do what he wanted with it because I was frustrated. Up to that point, was a very frustrating year for me, and he had that thing dialed in. We were really good all night after time trials when I just kind of said, okay, do whatever you think. And then I just kind of tweaked on it. The next night he wasn't there. He was off racing. So I just kind of tweaked on it a little different where I thought it needed fixed. And, we put ourselves in position to win Tux 450. It didn't happen. I had a flat, but, we were there.
So let's get into that. I'm kind of glad you brought it up. I wanted to get to it. It's hard to find a transition to talk about it, but Cole and your son a little bit. He's obviously progressing. He's winning races. Clearly put a setup in your car that works. So he's obviously even knowledgeable about the big car stuff. Where's he at in his racing journey, and what does his future look like? Now, we don't have a crystal ball, but what are some goals and aspirations?
Oh, he wants to race sprint cars. I mean, that's what he wants to race. He's been fortunate enough to make some laps last year while we were testing. He tested the 88 of Scott Hess's car when I was driving it. We were at a test session at the end. He made 5 laps in that. And then he at the end of the year, we were testing the 12 car. I had one car, the car that we're actually we're racing now. And him and my owner were running laps in the car that I ended the year with. and he was doing really good in that. He climbed in the car I ran right at the end. He was within 0.2 of me. He's very smooth with it. It's amazing on how good he knows the race cars, and he does all of his own stuff with the micro. He does all of his own tuning, his engines, all the chassis stuff. It's all him. He just needs me or somebody to help get the truck and trailer to the track. And he pays attention. He knows what's going on, and he pays attention at the sprint car track of really watching what the car does. There's a lot of people that watch what race cars do, but don't see what they do. And he's learned at a young age a lot of that stuff, and he's pretty sharp on it already.
Where did he learn the tuning with the micro? Right, it's not like you're in the micro world
But
right
he
now.
works for Harshman Race Engines, who build our engines. He's been working there for 2 years while he's doing school. He's homeschool or online school since COVID. He hasn't been set foot back inside of the school building since COVID. He does online school, and he works during the week at Harshman's Race Engine. So he does all the dyno work there on the 600 stuff and all. So he's learned all ends of it. But from day one with the chassis stuff with the 600 and all, he's just kind of picked it up and ran with it. And he thinks it through. He thinks, he's a lot like me. He'll he could pop his head in the room here and go, how about this? Something popped in his head about changing something geometry wise, and what would that do or whatever. And he has a really, really good feel for changes. That's the amazing part, because that is the part that helps you if you can tell what it did. Like we tested at Port last year, and when I would go out within a half lap, I knew if it was better or not, worse, whatever, with whatever changes we made. You know right away if you really have a good feel. And you have to test at the right place. Like Port Royal was a good place to test because it's 18 seconds, it's slick, so you can feel every little thing. You can't go test a place like we used to test at Williamsgrove years ago, but we run around there 16 seconds by ourselves. You don't learn nothing. You can't learn nothing. You can go fast doing anything there. So
right.
And by yourself. So it's good. But he's done a wonderful job. He can run up front. He wins races. He can win wing races, non-wing races. So he's doing a really good job. But yeah, sprint car races is where he wants to be.
That's where he wants to go.
Yeah.
So how are you kind of planning out your tail end of your career based on, like, you want to keep going? We watched those interviews. You want to do this. You want to win. That drive is still there. Where's that balance between when he's ready to get into the car and that's going to take even more time and commitment, and where you're at? Is it a sort of a, hey, you'll get your turn, I'm going to keep going until it's time for me to be done, or
no? I mean, if we can put a deal together for him to go start racing some sprint car stuff, and I feel it's a safe deal, and I'll let him go do it. I mean, I'm not going to hold him back. I'm not quitting racing. Yet I still enjoy this. I really feel like I still can be competitive as heck. And I still can win races. So, as long as I enjoy it and I can do all those things, I'll do it until I can. And, could that be a year from now? Could that be 2 years from now? Who knows? I feel really good. This is the best I've felt in a race car for probably 5, 6, 7 years, as far as physically in a race car. So, whatever, you never know. You never know what can happen. I could get hurt, this weekend. I could do whatever, or I could just say, heck with it. By the end of the weekend, I could be done. I just take one race at a time, and just, we try to be as fast as we can. And if I feel like we're gaining on stuff, can be competitive and all, I'm going to do it.
If you win the Tuscarora 50 and the National Open this year, the same year, will you say, bon voyage, I'm out of here, everybody?
No,
because I want to win them again.
Yeah.
Go get them again. All right. I can still do this, right? Like,
yeah.
There you go.
I mean, those are the races that I worry about. Those races, the Outlaw shows, all the big stuff in Central PA is what I worry about. And that's what I try to build too. Everything I do, we might have some off nights, but those off nights are probably because I'm working on something that I think we need to be able to be in position to win those other shows. I thought if you guys ever go listen to Chase Deese's interview after he ran second the other night at Port, listen to his interview with Jeremy Elliott and how he talked about they thought they needed to be better, but they weren't sure. Yeah, I'm just kind of paraphrasing the words. But then they went to I-55 and got their butts kicked. And that just kind of told them, okay, we need to be different. And that's hard because you could show up here and be pretty good. But if you don't really know if you're good or not, like I know what's good. And we can run third and be a terrible race car. We can run 10th and have the best race car in the pit area. And you have to know that, and you have to be honest with yourself to know that. Yes, we are good. Yes, we are okay. No, we're terrible. And I think there's a lot of guys that are not honest with themselves on where they are at. It don't mean you have to win to have a really good race car. You just have to be honest on where you're truly at with your stuff.
So, a guy like Chase, he's a young guy. He has some experience, but he's a younger guy. When he says, "Hey, and I have my own story I could say on this when you're to the show, but he seems like a student of the game. But he's also a younger kind of, he hasn't won a lot of big shows yet, or he definitely knows what he wants to feel. But after like his experience versus yours, do younger guys even realize what they need sometimes? Do they even know what they need? Do they even realize, like you said, they might not know the car was third and awful or 10th and great? Do they know what they need to fix that sometimes?
No, I don't think everybody does. I think Chase, I don't know, I race against Chase's dad, you know what I mean? So, but I think Chase seems like, first of all, when he had his own car, he was fast in it. So either somebody around him or himself knows what's going on with the race cars to have your own car to be that fast. He was pretty quick in the one car, Zemco car with Tommy around. They're fast in the 23, him and Tommy, which I knew they would be. So I think he's smart enough to realize that, yes, we're good. No, we're not. You know what I mean? Just like his interview, he talked about how he screwed up to beat the 69K. He tried to pass it a corner probably too soon. Yeah. But he had such a run at him, almost had to try it. But he also realized, I probably should have waited. You know what I mean? But that's all.
Went to the top, second guessed himself.
Yeah, that's all part of the learning. And he was quick to talk about that right after the race. So that told me right then and there, he's analyzing everything pretty quickly and realizes what he needs to do. And I think the top teams always know if they're good or not. You know what I mean? It don't matter if it's Larson, Silva, or Rico, or with Ricky Warner, or Anthony and Joe Mooney, and all them guys. They know if they're good or not. They can win and still know if they're good or not. You can win a race and just have everything line up and go your way and not be the best car or not be that great. I mean, you're still good, but not be that great.
And Anthony talked about that, I think, at Williams Grove the other week when he said he got out and he won by 6 seconds. And he's like, the steering felt awful. I didn't feel good. He wasn't comfortable. I mean, I think that's, us, the normal fans, were like, you're out of your damn mind. But he knew. Yeah, they were in the car.
You do. I mean, there's been plenty of times I've been in victory lane that I know we didn't have a very good car. But, everything went your way. There's been plenty of times that I ran fifth and had a really, really good car. Just, started back too far, didn't catch cautions, all that good stuff. But I think if you're honest with yourself, you know when you're good and not good or okay.
You've been racing all season here. BAPS, Williams Grove, Port Royal, at least, once. I mean, Williams Grove's been about 1.5 races, but enough laps so far. What do you think about, let's talk about Williams Grove. I'm going to skip Lincoln a little bit, right? You don't run Lincoln as often, but you've raced with all these guys here this year. What do we look like from a posse perspective? No one knows, right? This is totally like, hey, we don't know. But what do you think about, some of the speed you've seen with some of the guys? Obviously, they have to get it right, time trial. It's all got to go right. but do you feel like you've seen some of that type of speed this year?
It's going to be interesting because I feel like we have some speed, and our lap times are like Chase's and Danny's and the other TJ's, and we're all relatively the same speed. The last 2 times at the Grove, Anthony was basically 2/10 faster than everybody else. 10th and a half, 2/10, which when Anthony was really good, qualifying, that's about what he is. So, we were 5th quick last week, going out late in time. I was pretty happy with that.
Yeah.
I'm going to assume, and this is an assumption, that if that was an Outlaws show, we probably could have been 11th or 12th. Or we could be 20th.
Yeah.
It really depends on where you're at. And you don't ever know how you are until they show up. And they truly don't know where they're at either until they show up against a tough competition. Because they race against those 8-10 guys. Volusia County, beginning year, tells them some because they have everybody there most of the time. Not everybody was there, but, a better field of cars. So you kind of know. We know Gravel is going to be fast. We know he's going to be a rocket ship when he shows up in Williams Grove. The 41 is going to be fast. Logan Schuhart's really fast right now, I think. But it's where the rest of them are and where the rest of us are in relation to each other. Are we better than not those top 3 guys I just named, the rest of the field? You know what I mean? And that's where it kind of comes to. And you don't know until they show up.
And I'll let Jimmy go next here. This will be my last one for now. When the field starts to show up and you get in the pits and you're starting to look at the roster and people that are showing up, how closely do you pay attention if it's going to end up a split field or not, and where you pull the pill? Do you really care about that until it's time to get going, or is that something you're like, damn, I know my pill?
No, we don't worry about it. I don't. I mean, there's a lot of people worry to death about that. I've learned a long time. It is what it is. You draw what you draw. You hope if you draw a bad pill, you hope it's a split field. I'm not going to go out 40th at Williams Grove if it's not a split field and have a chance at top 4 or 5 times. Probably not. There's not too many places you can do that. Every once in a while you can, it depends on what the track's like. But like Lincoln's a perfect example of that. Lincoln will drop off a good bit as it goes. It always has, always does. Normally the first 5 cars out of Lincoln have a big advantage. Then you kind of go through a little bit of phase, it slows down. Then it really starts slowing down. So from experience, certain racetracks how they are, but you can't control it. You draw what you draw. It is what it is. So you just try to do the best you can. The split fields are nice. I personally think they should split the field. If you have 4 heats, they should split the field no matter what. I don't care if it's 30 cars or 32, whatever the car count is for 4 heats, and you're doing time trials. I think you split the field, just because the track changes a little bit, and it just can mess up a guy going out late a little bit.
And Jimmy, I lied. I always have one other one. Over the years, I've always wondered your thoughts on Lincoln. I was just watching Thunder in the Mountain, or Mountain, whatever it is that our buddy does, and on YouTube. And I was watching 2006, and you were in Pete's car, I think, or the 30. I can't remember. And you were running and winning at Lincoln and everywhere. You've ran at Lincoln over the years, on and off, maybe depending on the car, depending on schedule. Is that a place that? What are your thoughts at Lincoln? Because there's years where I'm a Lincoln guy. I'm 40 minutes from there versus almost 2 hours to port. So I go to Lincoln more often, and there's been years where I might have seen you once or twice in 5 years, or very rare.
I love racing Lincoln, the racetrack. Lincoln has been notorious for, how do I say this? I might be like Danny a little bit. I might be a little harsh on people here a little bit.
Hey,
but Lincoln's been notorious for running slow programs. And I'm telling you, from a racer standpoint, just like a fan standpoint, we don't want to be there 6 hours. I'm fortunate enough now I don't race 100 times a year. But you take these guys like Danny and Anthony and these guys that race 80 to 100 times a year, they want to get in, they want to race, and they want to get out of there because there's a lot of work goes on yet that night for those race teams of washing up, getting ready if there's a midweek show or whatever might be next. And Lincoln has just been notorious to drop the ball on keeping shows moving. We could show, and I'm talking years ago, I'm not talking with Scott and Jerry Parrish and the promoters there right now. I think they've worked on trying to get better at that. Especially last year, it seems like they really worked on in the end of the year trying to get better at that. But there was years there that if there was rain in the area, we'd run their regular Saturday night show, 2 division or whatever, 3 division, whatever they might have had. They'd run that in less than 2 hours, 2.5 hours. But there was no rain in the area. It's 4 to 5 hours. Yeah. It's just in today's world, you cannot do that. The people don't want to sit that long. Me from a racer, I don't want to be there that long. You know what I mean? But yeah, I love the racetrack. I've always enjoyed it. I've had a lot of success there. For considering there was only 1 year I raced there full time. We're 30-some career wins there. We've done pretty good there. And I mean, there was years when I drove a 461, we'd go down there and run 8 races, win 4 of them. So that's against Fred when Fred was doing it in his prime. So I mean, we've always ran good. A lot of people don't think of me as short track racer, but Grandview is one of my favorite racetracks and one of my best racetracks. So we just enjoy all the racetracks. I don't dislike any racetrack as far as the tracks. They need to get their act together and run the show a little faster. Port Royal's kind of the same way. They've kind of gotten this mode of stretching out a little bit too much now. Some of it's, when they have their 3 divisions with 305s, it takes longer.
Yeah,
you
get a million 305s.
Does, but yeah, there's some areas they could help with speeding that process up. But they all should do that. I mean, you watch a high limit show, an outlaw show, they run their things through now. They don't mess around. Even if the weather isn't nice, they don't mess around. And that's how you keep fans watching. That's how you keep fans coming back. And that's how you keep everybody happy.
Yeah, agree completely. For sure. There were definitely years, my 20s, early 20s. I don't care how long you keep me there. I don't give a shit. But the older I get, the more I'm like, I'm getting sleepy. I gotta get to I don't want to
see now. I didn't want to break, but at my age, I mean, we need to be done early for me.
Go ahead, Jimmy. What do you got? So I know there was a lot of fan questions came through.
Yeah, I'm going to ask a couple others though, because they might cover some of these questions that some of the fans asked. But I'm going to so we have a third co-host, Chris. He can't be here tonight, but he wanted me to ask you this. What was it like racing in the quote-unquote, what he calls the golden years of the PA Posse, the 90s to about, I guess, 2010, to what it is now? What's the differences? What's the similarities?
I think, honestly, right now, it's similar. We went through a stretch there, I think, probably, I'm trying to think how many years ago, that maybe we weren't as tough in here as we were. Probably right after Fred retired. We didn't have, Danny kind of was like the only guy that could maybe run really good against the Outlaws. Now, with Anthony's growth, Dietz, little Freddie seems a little faster this year with his own car. Danny. So we have now, again, I want to say 4 to 5, 6 cars that I think are capable, if they put themselves in a position, of beating the Outlaws. It still comes back. They have a big advantage over us because them guys can time. They always have. The 2 cars a rocket ship everywhere it shows up. It don't matter when he goes out in time trials. He's going to be put himself in position. The 69K right now for the last year has been the fastest car in the country qualifying. I don't know if it races as good as it used to, but man, it's a qualifying machine. Don't matter who's in it. But I think our guys are gaining on it. I think we're gaining on it. I think I'm a little better than I was last year. Anthony is getting back to it where he was last year. I think Danny's has a little bit more speed right now than he did last year. Chase Dietz is definitely faster than he was last year at this time. there's probably one or two guys, little Freddie. There's a couple guys that could surprise you with, if they go out the right time, they can time good. So TJ's at the Grove now. He hasn't been real quick this year like he was last year, but last year he was the fastest car at Williams Grove, week in and week out. In qualifying. And he has experience now at winning an Outlaw show. So I think we're closer now. I don't think we're quite like we were with me, Greg, and me and my prime Greg, Fred, Donald. Us four guys closer in our primes. We're pretty fast, but I still think we have a group that can win races and beat the Outlaws or high limit.
There was a period in between that and now that it was you. Hey, is Lance going to be there? Because that might be what we got, right? Because some of it was time trials. Like you said, we know Danny can race and pass cars, but his Achilles heel was timing in those shows. And this year, I think, like he talked about, and they worked on it and they acknowledged it. And Freddie talked about that the year we had him on the show previous to his, 50,000 win year. And he talked about timing. We got to get better at timing. When it's time, we got to get better at it. And they got better at it, right? I don't know if it necessarily showed through during the Williams Grove and the Outlaw stuff, but throughout that year, I mean, you wouldn't go to Lincoln and he wasn't in the top 5 in time trials and set himself up all year, all summer. So you were that guy for a long, long time. And I feel like there's a changing of the guard happening a little bit right now. Not that you can't, but there's more of us. There's more of a group, like you just said, that I think is really starting to, kind of bring the level up. And Matt Campbell at Lincoln, you put Matt Campbell out at the right time, he can be really fast.
Actually, at the Grove, if he gets out to the right time at the Grove, he can time good there at times. It tends to have to be a little more of a curb, wetter. But if he can get himself up front, he can race, good. At Lincoln, he's been pretty fast all year at Lincoln. But that's what I mean. There, those type of guys that you don't really come off the top of your head think about right away, but they still could put themselves in a position if everything, the draw goes their way and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But
no doubt.
You are right. When Fred retired, there was a downtime other than me because we had Greg's passing, and basically I was the senior of the group, not of age-wise, but of the racers, and
veterans.
There was a huge gap. Anthony still was just starting to learn and improving, and there was a huge gap. Well, now we've kind of closed that gap up. Anthony's got experience now. He's been one of the best cars the last 2 years in the country. Chase Dietz has really closed that gap up last year. I thought, he was really fast at the end year. It didn't matter what car he was in, which is a good sign. Little Freddie had an off year last year, but he's had his good year. So, I think he's a little better already this year than what he was last year for whatever reason. I mean, sometimes stuff just don't work out.
Yeah. And there was a time too where there was sort of that break where Brent came home off the tour and he was that guy a little bit, right? You and him, he was definitely a contender and still would be. I think he comes off high limit and is home for the National Open or the Weicker. Well, at the Weicker, he's going to be he's on tour, but he was he's going back and forth a little that year. 2020 and 2021, he lost to Larson. He finished second to Larson 14 times that year in PA. And then 2021, I think he had his biggest year, bouncing around and doing everything. But we needed what's happening right now. It's a good time for it.
Yeah.
Jimmy, go ahead.
So, honestly, I think PA right now is in a good spot because take me out of the picture because of my age. Danny's the senior of the group now, but Anthony's still pretty young. Chase Dietz is pretty young. Campbell is young. And they're building that deal from my understanding. That deal's getting better and better. And, the financial end of it's getting better. So you just keep that snowball effect. And if we can keep people interested in doing it, it looks like we can be okay, against the traveling teams, as long as the guys keep learning and keep improving, and just as, Anthony's teams are very well financed team. Everybody knows that. But finance don't mean shit. Look how bad he was early in the year. Didn't come from a lack of finance.
Right.
You know what I mean? So that just shows you that the money helps a lot, but there's a perfect example of one of the best cars in the country the last 2 years. They started this year and was no good. No good at tracks that they were pretty fast at. So that just shows you how quick it changes. Now, him and Joe went to work and they figured it out and they've gotten some speed back. They're gaining on it, and you just don't do it overnight. That's what people don't realize. You just don't do this. You can't just take the switch and flip it, and all of a sudden
just one magic change.
It don't happen. And you just have to keep doing it. Schatz is a perfect example. I think he will be better later in the year than he was last couple of years. But just because he went back to Chevys don't mean
it's not just like
right way it's going to be fixed, because everything they've done with the Fords in the car, it's going to be changing now. Because I can tell you for a fact, motors mean everything as far as when it comes to racing, how they race. There's a huge difference in something that makes a lot of power that might qualify really good, but lots of time those things don't race very well. And there's a huge difference in that. And it's always a blend of the two on, you need both. And you have to, be able to figure it out, and most of the top teams figure that out by detuning or having a good engine combination. Like Riders racing engines they make a lot of power, but they're also very drivable. I think overall, they're an overall better motor. Charlie Garrett's the best engine builder in the country. Brian Morris is probably right there with him as far as making a ton of power. But I don't know if they necessarily race as well as a Rider does. But they all run really good. They all time really well, and they all are fast. But you still have to have your car right.
Right. So, kind of talking more about time trials here. It's funny because like the past couple of weeks we've had time trial shows here in PA, and it seems like from now until the end of the season, there's at least one time trial show. BAPS has gone completely timed hot laps. We're kind of away from a lot of, not that there's no handicap races here from the rest of the season, but at least every weekend in PA from here on out, there's a time trial show. How do you feel about that? I mean, obviously that's probably helping, get some of these guys faster by doing more time trial stuff. But do you think that hurts maybe some of the mid to lower teams that they don't get that chance? Or how do you feel about format wise?
Well, you all know I'm old enough to know that you start dead last in heats at the Grove, and when I drove 461, we start dead last, run 8th in the heat until about halfway, and then win it. You don't matter. You have the best race car in the world. You don't do that. You can't start in it. Very few people at Williams Grove are going to start 8th at Williams Grove right now and run top 4 from 8th. Unless you get it on the start, once you get going, it's not happening. Unless the track gets really slowed down, really slick, and the chassis become an issue. But if we're running 16, 17 seconds, it don't happen. Same way at Port Royal. If we're running 15, 16 seconds, even 17 seconds at Port Royal, it's very hard to pass cars. Lincoln's normally, if you're still in the 14s at Lincoln, it's hard to pass cars. It's just the way the racing is. So I think the time trialing is better overall for the racers in general. Does it hurt some racers because they don't have the speed and they don't get start towards the front? Yes. But anymore, it's so hard. I laugh at the keyboard warriors that complain that the Outlaws need to invert their heats. Okay? Well, I can tell you what. You can invert the top 6 cars in every heat, and probably the finish is going to remain the same.
Right.
The guy that was set fast time starts 6th, and he probably ain't going to run much better than 5th or 6th. Maybe lucky 4th. Unless the track would be, slick and could move around. But most of the time, it's not like that. It goes back to the story when I was telling you about Little Freddie 4/10 faster than me, and I didn't feel like I was gaining on. It's crazy on how close everybody's cars are, and you just cannot pass nobody. Williams Grove's been one of the worst racetracks around for the last 2 years because the straightaways stay wet and you can't pass nobody. It don't matter what the corners do; everybody goes down the straightaways. This year, so far, now we haven't raced a whole lot. They seem like they've kind of, so far, fixed that a little bit. Like the first 2 weeks that we raced there, the straightaways started getting slick and you could move around, you could pass. But if the straightaways stay wet, everybody goes down them. It don't matter what they do in the corners, everybody goes down them. So it's just so hard to invert anybody and go fast. You know, you look at our speed week format where we invert the fastest guy. How many times does that guy actually run second or third in the heat? He don't. I mean, unless something goes right. The high limit uses our speed week format. The fast timer normally runs fourth, fifth, third.
Yeah.
You mean that range?
Because if that fast timer wins the heat, they get the automatic pull of the dash.
But
that's happened in 2 years. That's happened a couple times.
Yeah, it happened a couple times. But if you take notice how that happens, it's normally on the start or they catch a caution or something that helps them out.
Right. Two of them wadded up at the front of it or something like that. It's not just
very seldom they can just drive through the field.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I will say this. I don't agree with the keyboard warriors on the format of the Outlaws. If you're going to be the best, you're going to time the best, you get the chance to start up front, the best cars start up front, you go race it out at the front with the best cars. You earned it. You earned every bit of it. That's the premier pinnacle. High limit, Outlaw, you go earn that. I love it. If to me, the people that are complaining are fans of guys that are losing.
Well,
just saying.
I just think they're not realistic. They don't know the ins and outs of how tight the cars are nowadays. And the one thing the Outlaws did years ago is when they did you heads up by time, and then everything after that was how you finished. So there was years, like I remember years of me and Fred, when I was in 461, he was in 77. We wouldn't time good. We'd start 6th, 7th, 8th at the Grove and run second and third in Outlaw heats. You know what we got rewarded for? Start 20th in the feature. Because they always went by time back then.
Right.
You know, everything was by time. You know, we'd drop by the guys that win the races in the heat races. You know what I mean? But we start so far back. So I love the Outlaw format. I love where you earn it by time. And if you time good but don't race good, you'll probably back up a spot or two and don't get rewarded for that. The handicap stuff nowadays, you know, the Groves deal, how they do it now, I don't run a lot of the handicap stuff, but, you know, they handicap, I think, the heats, and then it's heads up how you finished.
I believe so.
Yeah, the heats. Yeah, it's not bad. It's still tough for guys to be starting back and expect to go forward in the heat. But at least that way, the guy that you started on the pole, if he backed up the fourth, he didn't get rewarded to start on the pole again.
Yeah. Right.
And that's one thing me, Fred, and Greg, and us guys that start in the back every week, we would get so mad at that. We drive our asses off to get to the top 4 at the Grove on a regular handicap show. And the guy that started on the pole back up to 4th would be the guy starting on the pole again. And yeah, it's a way of how it was back then. You know, actually, you know, before I started racing, it was worse yet. They inverted more yet. So, I mean, it's just, you know, there's times change, everything changes, and you need to keep up with the times. And the cars are just so close now. You just can't do that.
Yeah.
What do you think about the timed hot laps at BAPS that they do? Do you like that idea? Is a mix between
Colton knows I don't necessarily care for it. I mean, it's better than luck of the draw. It is better than luck of the draw. You know, the only thing about the time hot laps is it don't entice nobody to come in from the outside. To say, because
they don't have the laps.
I'm going to use me as a perfect example. You know, when I drove Scott Hess's car last year, never raced the car. I show up at BAPS and have the time in warm-ups and haven't raced the car yet. You know what I mean?
Haven't been in, yeah.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So you're at a disadvantage right then. So it's better than luck of the draw. You know what I mean? And you're only timing against your heat race. So there's no excuse. You know, I don't care if it is if you have the toughest heat, you're still only timing against those cars. So it's it's still up to you to make your laps, make good laps, time good. Danny had a he's probably one of the best cars at BAPS the last 3 or 4 years easily.
Oh yeah.
He times terrible. That's why he didn't have a shot at winning on the last race there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He was in my flight. He was 5/10 slower than I was. He was like 7th, I think, in our flight of time trials.
Yeah.
I mean, that's terrible for him. That's why he didn't have a shot at winning the race. You know what I mean? Because he didn't have nobody to blame. It's him.
Right.
So
I think you said he ran the wrong line, and like that's rare for him to
we all
get
do
it
that.
wrong.
It's part of the game that we all play.
Yeah.
But he got to, I think, 3rd in our heat. It was, I think, so maybe 2nd. I'm not sure where he got to in the heat. But he improved himself, but he still started probably too far back to have a shot at winning.
14th. Yeah. Like it took him starting 14th for someone else to win the race. Like that's how good he's been there. Like, and still been up front wing a lap 1, almost crashed the thing. He was airborne with that Tyler Ross spin. Like it could have been over quick. But Jimmy, go ahead.
This is a question that came through the chat a couple times, and one I was also going to ask. Here's Denny Kramer asking, "What's the most memorable win in your career that sticks out the most?" I'm going to add a second part to it. If there is one race that you haven't won, what would it be?
Knoxville
that you'd want to win.
Knoxville Nationals would be that one, but I'm realized that's not going to happen now. So, it's hard to be memorable because there's a lot.
So many.
Well, I mean, I've been fortunate enough to win all the big shows in here multiple times. Certain ones stick out. My first Grove National win's special. When I won it for Al starting 13th, it was very special. My Tux 450, there's a few of them I really, but the ones that stick out the most are the ones I don't win. And like the Tux 450 and the 69K when we had the oil leak and I physically couldn't hold on the steering wheel no more, ransack it. That stuff as us racers, that's what we really remember. But I mean, all my Grove Nationals, one of the things I'm most proud about my Grove National and my Tux 450 is the amount of races I've won for different owners, all those races. I have four Grove National, 4 different owners. So 5 actually, I think. But it's just I've been fortunate enough to win for different owners, and I take pride in doing that.
So to kind of related to that, something I've always wondered, and not a driver, you've driven a lot of race cars. You've won in everything you've ever been in. When things go wrong, it can be either party. But all the famous big rides, small rides, they all come to an end at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Is it sometimes they just run their course and it's just better that way? Or like, why do you think that happens to a guy who's been so successful? Fred kind of seems journey right over his career, all the cars he was in. It just kind of, in a world where winning matters, meritocracy, that's what matters. And you're a guy who's won. Fred's a guy who's won, but have been in all of those different cars. Is it a million different reasons why, or is it something that like we don't see as fans that we don't understand?
It's a lot of different reasons. It grows old on everybody's sides. It grows old. Sometimes there's something going on that the one side don't even know about. You know what I mean? Sometimes winning can cause problems. Believe it or not, winning can cause problems. And I owe everything to Walt Dyer and Marcia Dyer. That's who gave me my biggest chance. But I'm telling you, we won 30-some races one year. Next year, won 26. And you would have thought the end of the world was coming.
Wow.
I mean, my last year in Al Hamilton, Fred won 30-some, whatever he won that year.
Mm-hmm.
I think I won 19, 18. I think I had 19 seconds to Fred. But since it was his old driver that won, that changed the
you know what I hear?
Process.
The word that I hear in there, and I've seen it a million times as like an outsider, is ego.
Yeah,
ego.
I guess it
from
would be,
either side.
Yeah, I guess it would be ego a little bit, you could call it. But I think some of it is, you everybody, I've always been try to be very level keyed. Don't get up and down. And, I'm not an excited person. I don't get very down. You don't see me excited in victory lane a lot. When I won the Grove National after Greg's passing, that's probably the most excited I've been in a long time in a race car in a victory lane. But you have to be level keep because this sport is so highs and valleys and peaks and lows, and it's so hard on you mentally. The mental side of it is what makes it for people. Physical capability. There's a lot of guys can drive race cars. There's a lot of guys that can drive a race car. Mentally, that's the difference. David Gravel, Donnie Schott, Steve Kinsler, Sammy, Doug Wolfgang. Anthony, mental aspect has gotten so much better, became such a smarter racer over the years. And I could sit here and I won't. I could name guys that can drive the wheels off the race car, but mentally they are not. They don't win because it's mentally they don't make smart decisions. I think that's where Chase Dietz is very good. I think mentally he's very smart and realizes when something's wrong or right. So I think Little Freddie, I think Little Freddie gets a little bit of bad rap because of his dad. He's never done nothing to nobody other than him and Danny has had their run-ins, but just those two, and I've been fortunate enough to race against Little Freddie since he started. So, I think he gets a little bad rap because his dad, a lot of people didn't care for Fred, and Fred kind of brought some of that on himself too. But,
Sure.
He's another guy I think is very mentally tough, very smart in a race car, and knows what he needs to do. That's the difference between the guys that win and the guys that don't. And the guys that don't, they might try to make too many excuses instead of just working on their stuff. You know what I mean? And, when you start, I seen a comment wanting to know about my wing theory of the discussion. When you start worrying about and thinking people are cheating, you are beat. I'm fortunate enough. I come from nothing and start racing with nothing. So I couldn't complain. I couldn't complain about my motor or anything. We just worked on a race car and just try to make it go as fast as we can and not worry about what everybody else, if they're cheating or not cheating. I mean, I guarantee you, me and Todd Schaefer used to have this discussion years ago. We would race against illegal motors at port. We know it. But it wasn't the guys winning the races. It was the guys that run 10th to 15th. But they would give us fits in heat races. You know what I mean? But we know they were illegal. But they would never check them guys. You know what I mean? So, it's just one of those deals. But, I think it's just more of the mental end of it is so tough. It's what wears you down. Me at my age, that's one of the reasons why I have to race the way I race now, because mentally I would just be worn out. I just, at my age, there's no way I could run 80 races a year. I'd just be mentally worn out and not be sharp when I show up the track. And that's where, there's nights, as much as people think we have great jobs, which we do as guys that drive, there's plenty of times when you show up at the track, it's just like a regular job and you don't really want to be there.
Right.
And, you need to somehow figure out a way to keep yourself fresh or make it where you want to go. And I think, me personally now, it's just being smart on where I race. And it makes me want to go to the next race whenever that happens. Somebody like Danny or Anthony or these guys, Chase, that's going to run 80 to 90, 100 times. They have to have something else to kind of keep them driving to go forward. You know what I mean? On those days that they really don't want to be there. Where it's just like a normal job. So, you could work a normal job for 30 years at the same place, and I guarantee there's a lot of times you don't want to show up, but you still show up. So
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a wild, that's something I really never thought of. Like, as a fan, I'm like, man, that would be so cool and do it forever. But that competition and that concentration and that want of winning and you're going to lose more than you'll ever win, right? In this game, you're going to lose more than you win.
Yes.
It's like in baseball, you bat 300, you're doing a good job.
Yes.
That means you got out 7 out of 10 times.
I guarantee you,
Like-
if you're batting 300 in sprint car racing, you're having a hell of a year.
Right.
Right.
Like, well, like you had 50% winning seasons. Let's back up a minute, okay? Did
Well,
you have
we
some
had
in the 69K that were pretty damn good?
not close to 50. We've 33%.
Oh, okay.
That's,
still
okay.
pretty
that's
good,
about what we averaged for a couple years was 33%. We'd win 10 shows roughly a year. So we range from 25 to 33% win percentage, which was stellar to me. Which
Yeah.
was
One
unbelievable.
out of every 3. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And considering
This
it,
day and age.
most of it was always big shows. You know, it wasn't like we were showing up at a local show and winning. You know, it was always the big shows. But yeah, it's just tough. You know, I'm fortunate enough. I have a regular job now. You can call it. My owner would tell me it. My boss would tell me I don't really have a job. That's who I work for. But it's the guy that owns my best friend who owned the 30C that I drove for. I'm fortunate enough I have a job. Mike Eardley, who used to race, he told me a long time ago, he wouldn't want to race for a living like I did and Fred did and guys did. Think about that right now. You know, I seen Danny post something. We've ran 7 races in here. Now think about that. If you're doing this for a living and you only raced 7 times so far this year,
Yeah, that's
the income.
yeah.
And that's what Early said. Like he couldn't picture having that worry of not alone the performance end of it. Are we even going to get to race, even have a shot at making money? You take a month of rainouts, that's a month of no pay. You know what I mean?
And not just that, when you finally do get back going, who knows where your performance is, kind of like what you're saying, because
Yes.
it's almost like restarting over because you have so much off time.
There's a lot. When people see people that do this for a living, think it's a great job. I would not change nothing in my life for it. But trust me, at times it's a very stressful thing when it comes to, we basically have a 6-month period that you really race a lot to make your money for a year. You know what I mean? And hopefully you can do that. And hopefully your start of the year next year don't get delayed from weather. You know what I mean? Because realistically, as a driver, that did it for a living. Local shows, it's very hard to. You can make a living, but you don't start making money until the bigger shows. You know what I mean? Unless you're winning. That's the only way you make money is if you win.
That's it.
Until the Outlaws come in, or like our Speed Week and stuff like that. Yeah, that's when you can make your money. But it's still it's a tough deal to do. You take the amount of rainouts we had already this year for guys. These guys that are trying to do it for a living, that's tough.
Brent Marks just talked about that this weekend at Texas. He did an interview with Jeremy Elliott, and he talked about this break has been hard on him and his team, and they're racing for a living.
Yes.
Now they went home. They chose to not. They went to Knoxville, but they didn't. He said, "I'm not going to run handicap shows locally. $4,000 to win, $5,000 to win a handicap show. I'm going to start 10th, maybe break equipment to maybe win 5. Like I'm not. He's like, I'm not going to do that." And we had this long break. He said it was really difficult, the financial side of it. They weren't traveling, but they weren't earning, and they got a race to earn, right? And so they were happy to get going again. And look, Texas, they got one in.
Yeah.
Oh no, Eldora, right? Even Eldora, they went out there at Eldora and one got rained out. They could have went to Texas and easily rained out that first night that he won.
Yeah.
They were all thrilled to be there. They were thrilled to run a race. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense, actually. Like, man, we complain about all the racing, but when we don't have it, it's like, we're trying to make a living.
Yeah. It's a tough deal. So it's really hard on teams and racers, and, where you are, 90% of the drivers are, probably 95%, might even be more than that. Only way they make money is a percentage. So you don't make nothing if you're not racing any. So it's a tough deal. And, I've been fortunate enough to do it a long time and being okay, but it's a tough deal to do, with the amount of rainouts we have nowadays. And don't get me wrong. I think tracks are smart for canceling the way they do early. Nowadays, you have to. You cannot.
You
I
can't
don't
take a
Can't
chance.
afford it. Literally.
Yes, not yesterday. Yesterday was Sunday. Saturday. It hardly rained at my house here all day. Hardly any.
Yeah.
Like it looked like Port and Lincoln screwed up. Okay.
Yeah.
But let's say it did rain then and it poured hard.
Yeah.
But let's say they didn't do it, but still cancel and didn't rain. I still think they made the right calls because
Agreed.
nowadays people don't show up for one thing when it's raining. Or
If
when
it's
it calls.
50-50,
Yeah.
Right.
If it's 50-50, they don't think they're going to get the whole thing, and they're not showing
And the
up.
worst thing for a race team is show up the racetrack and get the car muddy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And not race. You know, us at the Grove, we ran time trials. There's still all the maintenance has to get done to that car still. You know what I mean? Even though we only ran hot laps and time trials. So it's still work. You know what I mean? And it's, you know, just added work. You know, I'd rather not, you know, nowadays I just think racetracks can't afford to take those shots. They can on some given nights, you know, if it's a certain time but the year. But right now with how the weather for it, everybody knows the weather. They can't lie to you.
right?
Not like they used to.
They're like, oh yeah, it's sunny here. And
Oh yeah, we used to
Call-
sit in the
call
parking
up.
lot, call, and they tell you it's fine, and it's pouring down rain. You know what I mean? You know, I was in Lincoln's parking lot one year, out sitting waiting. There was already rigs in, and it's a monsoon coming down. I called the office actually when they're canceling. Oh, it's going to clear out. It's going to be fine. And I laughed at the woman on the phone. I knew who it was. I won't say her name, but I called my crew chief at the time. Said, I'm going home. You can leave because we are not racing tonight. And actually, that night was guys just started leaving because it rained so hard. And actually, teams left and they still didn't cancel yet. But eventually, they canceled because
Yeah,
most
nobody's
teams
around.
left. They just
Yeah.
said, heck with it. We're gone. You know what I mean? So it's nowadays the track just can't survive by doing it. You know, opening their gates and not getting nobody there.
Yeah.
You can't do that. And we don't want no tracks closing up.
No, we don't.
It's a business. It's become a business decision, not like, you know, I think like Speed Week, they might give it a chance, let the day go on a little.
Yeah.
They know the fans are coming regardless of the situation. Outlaw Tune-Up Week, look, it is what it is. If they're not going to put enough fans in the stands, and that was what, a 410 358 show, right? That's a pretty good payout through
Yeah.
a roster of cars. It just makes sense. And that we all kind of been talking about, that's what's coming. That's what's going to be the future. That's what it is. If it's iffy, weekly, not a
just the way it is. I
not
mean,
a Turner, not a Speed Week, you know, they're gonna.
it's local racetrack, it's high limits, the Outlaws, they all do it now because it's just the way the people don't show up. If there's a chance of rain, they don't show up.
I got to give the National Series some credit too, because I think they do a good job of canceling early enough. You know what I mean?
Well, I think nowadays you kind of can look the weather yourself, and you know there's a few really good apps that you can have that's pretty accurate. I mean, you know, it's funny. Like the last couple of years, we'd be at Port Royal Pit Area and go, I mean, it's going to rain in 15 minutes, and it's going to rain for an hour and a half, and 15 minutes later, it's raining. And an hour and a half, it's still raining. Yeah, I mean, they're pretty good nowadays at forecasting it. And most of the racetracks are in contact. I know, you know, Port Royal is in contact with Penn State, the weather stuff up there with their stuff. Some, it's just you just can't do it nowadays.
Williams Grove Friday night was the anomaly. Now everyone thought they were going to get that thing in and get that thing rolling, and man, it was the only anywhere east of like. Draw a line down the center of the state. It was the only storm east of the middle of the state. Like, it was the only storm and it hit there. Craziest shit ever. Jimmy, go ahead. Let's get him out of here. Get him wrapped up. Any other questions from the fans?
We got just a couple more fan questions.
No problem. We can take them all.
Jack Young says, shout out Jack Young, Chopstick Media. He's actually a photo we used tonight. Lance, you've been a lot of people's hero or inspiration to racing, but for you, who was your inspiration to start your racing career?
Well, the funny thing is, I wouldn't say I had inspiration to start my racing career. I grew up around it. My dad and his brothers owned at that time what was called late models. They were 55, 56, 57 Chevys. They raced. at Hagerstown, Jennerstown Speedway. I was a kid, like 1 or 2 years old, playing in the stones at the grandstands at Hagerstown Speedway. So, yeah, they got out racing. I grew over. Me and my father went by a micro track one time, went by a place that built micros, and a couple months later I was racing micros. So yeah, when I started sprint car racing, I looked up to Doug Wolfgang. I always admired him. He was driving Weichert's car when I started. I used to buy a lot of parts, used parts from Weichert and Dave Brown Jr. and stuff. So they kind of kept me racing a little bit, when I started. So, he's kind of the guy I've always looked up to.
Let's see here. Here's one right above him. Austin Griffey. What's one change you would take away or add to today's modern cars?
I think if you wanted to create better racing, I don't see it ever happening. But they need to make the tires smaller. They need to take probably a minimum of 3 inches out of the width of each tire and make the right rears no bigger than 100 inches. You need to unhook them. You need to slow them down. You need to slow the entry down. And the only way you do that is unhook them, and you can't do an arrow. The arrow deal don't work. The cars are the same as what they were 20 years ago. They were the same basically what they were 40 years ago when I started. The cars are. I mean, there's some minute differences, but chassis-wise, there ain't much difference. The motor's gotten more powerful. The wings are the same size. We are flat wing compared to dish wings. Not a huge difference, on that stuff. The biggest difference is the tires. And the biggest one is the left rear tire. The left rear tire got bigger and wider. So now it keeps the cars propped up. Everybody can drive in the corner as hard as they want. They don't get loose, and it makes passing hard. That would be my answer. You just narrow the tires up, get them smaller where guys can overheat them, and just, slow them down. They have to slow up. You can't. Donald Christ did an interview I seen the other week talking about if you are not off the throttle going in the corner, it's hard to pass somebody. You know what I mean? So if the guy in front of you is not off the throttle, it's hard to pass him. So you need to slow the cars down and make them a lot harder to drive. And I think that's the answer. You know what I mean? But, I don't think it'll ever happen.
There's been a lot of talk about tires for the past few years, obviously, with the change and everything. That's one I haven't really heard of. So
I am not in favor of opening tire roll up.
Okay.
Because I think that's the dumbest thing. Because I've been around. When we had to open tires, the tracks rubbered up a lot quicker. The racing was not near as good. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And the expense for the teams will go way up. Because the problem with the open tire rule is now I have to haul extra tires with me to have whatever it is opened. Whatever compounds. We used to carry, when I drove 30C, we used to carry probably roughly $3,000 to $5,000 worth of tires in the trailer just so we had everything we might need. Today, I can show up at any racetrack in the country with 2 tires, 2 right rears, and be competitive. I don't have to worry about having 10.
Right.
Yeah. And for the small teams, that's the benefit. And you don't have all the different compounds you have to worry about carrying and all that stuff. I don't think spec tires are that bad. I think it helps equalize everything. It lets small teams be competitive. I just think they need to do stuff with the tires to make the racing better.
I just want to give this. Brad Bowling says, Lance, you were one of my dad's PA favorites, and he's from Missouri. So thanks for tuning in, Brad.
Thanks for tuning in, Brad.
I
saw someone from Australia was in here earlier too. That
Really?
was pretty cool. Because it's like 11 a.m. They were waking up when we were getting started, I think, for the most part. Trevor Stover, put his up there on the screen. I love this one.
Biggest piece of advice for a new sprint car driver driving wise?
Get your laps. Get your laps. And I'm not trying to throw nobody under the bus. I'm going to use the big topic of the month, the 1A. You had a guy that was in it who is I met him at Eldor, super nice guy, super good guy, who 2 nights in a row tore race cars up. Not saying all his fault. That's part of racing. You know what I mean? You had another young kid, 18 years old, that very little experience, gets in it, shows up at Port Royal, does not do nothing stupid, does not do nothing dumb, makes his laps, didn't look real bad up there when I watched him times, because Port Royal can be really tricky when it's slick. Didn't do nothing dumb. Shows up at BAPS and spanks us. Didn't start on the front row. Had a really fast race car. My son even said he didn't even watch me race because he was watching Torgerson race because he was so impressed by. He ran a really good, smart race. He made one little mistake, got into the wall going by a lap car.
Yeah, he slapped.
But he never missed a beat. He never. I rewatched it. He never made a mistake to give anybody a chance. The car was very good. Jacob had the car dialed in, and he did everything right with it. But he made his laps. You cannot wreck race cars and improve yourself. You have to make your laps. And I don't care if you run dead last. Finish your laps that you're making. You cannot spend your time and money built in race cars. You will not ever improve doing that. You know what I mean? And, that's what I preach to my son as soon as he started racing. You don't improve by wrecking every week. All you do is fall farther behind because you cannot – financially, it puts you farther behind, but then you're not making your laps. And my biggest thing is if you want to improve from a driver-wise, go to a place, don't matter who, where, what, that maybe they don't have a full car count, that you can get in the features and make laps. You know what I mean? And you don't show up an Outlaw show that you're not going to make, or you don't go to Knoxville, national. You just go make your laps. And another talented kid, I think they've done it the right way, is Emerson Maxim.
Yeah.
They it's a well-financed team. He's a very young, very good talented kid. But they've been smart on how he races, because he goes races. He came in here, raced a little bit, goes race the Outlaws a little bit, goes race the high limit. Then he goes to these other places that are a little bit easier for him and gets his confidence, don't beat himself up. But he's not running against the Outlaws every week and getting beat up every week and loses confidence, or high limit every week, And at times he's very fast. He's very fast in Knoxville's, but he's getting his laps in. You can't be on the hook every night and improve. And that's my biggest advice. You have to finish. You have to get your laps, and it takes time. It's far from easy. It takes time.
I tell you an example of that, and watching his career and just being friends with him, is Troy Wagaman. I remember his first 358 race. I remember they barely had enough to make it to the racetrack at the early years, but he ran at the back, and he ran and he got better, and he moved up and they still did a lot with very little into his 410 career, but he made the laps. He was talented enough from day one, but he had to make the laps and gain that experience. And I've been watching Trevor. Trevor has 3 races in a full-size car now. I've seen him get better each time he's been out watching him run the laps, and he's getting closer to the back of the field. He's getting closer. He's going to be a competitive race car driver. But yeah, it's making the laps. I love that.
And that's how you have to do it. You can't, unless you're financially. It's easier today if you had the money to get your laps. If I hit the lottery, my son will have like 20 races under his belt in about a month and a half.
Right.
We'll be at BAPS testing every week. Right. You know what I mean? Anthony kind of did the same thing. Not, they didn't. They went practice sessions.
Hey,
But
I saw Anthony wreck a lot of race cars
Yeah.
early in his career. You
Yeah.
could tell he was fast, but he learned. But they had the financial ability for
Yeah,
him
but
to
he is a little
learn
bit. He had the
whatever.
financial backing, but I still give them
Right.
credit because they did the right way. They didn't mess around. You know, they didn't mess around. They got him in a sprint car. They let him learn and just keep learning. And that's the nice thing about now. I mean, when I started, I'm lucky to run 20 races a year when I first started. You know what I mean? Because we'd have problems. We have to sit out and wait. You know, we didn't have what nowadays. Trent, the other thing you need to do is watch videos. If there's not a racer today, if they are not watching the replays of everything, I watch replay of every single race I'm in, even if they don't show me. I watch what the other guys are doing, what they're doing, tendencies and all that. And you all probably heard me talk about this in an interview before when I drove the 69K. I watch every single race that I am in. I watch every race I'm not in sometimes. You have to, there's so much learning available now because of the streaming that you can take advantage of as a team and a racer. I mean, Davey Brown at 90 some years old, him and Donald still watch replays of the races. Guaranteed. You know what I mean?
Students of the game.
That's how you stay on top and that's how you learn. So I think between the practice sessions that you can run up apps, which is very cheap and reasonable to do. Now I'm not talking about renting the place, but practice sessions, the videos you can learn, and just get your laps in. Just get your laps in. You cannot be wrecking every week and learning. It does not teach you anything, and that's the biggest thing. And you do what you can with what you have.
Right.
You don't complain. You just do the best you can.
One more question here from Hunter. How hard is it mentally and physically to run every show for PA Speed Week as a driver? Is that the toughest point in your whole season?
In my prime, it wasn't that bad. Either way, because we were prepared for it. We're we know what it's going to be like. When it's hot, it by the end of the week you are worn down. If it's one of those hot 90 to 100 degree days every day of the week, there's years that I would have been in the 88 Joe Hart's car, that we did maintenance at night and then sleep in as long as we could during the day because it was just so hot you couldn't do it. And you also have to think it's just not the driver mentally and physically, it's the team. The crew members work just as hard as anybody, and you're out in the hot parking lot all day long working, then you go to the races and work, and it puts a strain on everybody. And the heat's the biggest killer, and you don't get a break from it because you're 10 straight days, 9 straight days, whatever it is, and you just don't get a break from it. So by the end of that week, you are worn down. But from a driver's standpoint, you kind of are prepared for it. You can handle it. Now I'm telling you, when that week's over, you're happy if it rains out the next week. I mean, I guarantee there ain't too many teams that run the whole Speed Week deal of the top teams that could care less if they race the next week.
Right.
They'd be happy it rained out the whole weekend.
I tell you what, as a fan, just going, and even in the photographer world this last couple of years, I'm on my feet all night, and I hit, I don't know, 5 of them, 6 of them, and Hagerstown killed me. Hagerstown last year, it was like 89 degrees at night and 3,000% humidity.
Yeah.
I was absolutely miserable. And that's middle of the week. That's not even the end of the week yet. And the big shows left. I went home and I was like, I don't know if I want to do any more of this. And I was standing around. I wasn't working on a car. And there were some other friends of mine who were in the stands, and they were like, that was one of the worst races I've ever been at. I can't even imagine that grind and what you all go through. And like you said, the sleeping and the things.
Now, the flip side of that is also we know it's coming. July Outlaw shows. I know days in advance I need to watch what I drink, how I put fluids in me, especially at my age now. But, even back then we would get the body prepared for that week of make sure you're hydrated enough. Because you never eat properly during that week at all. It's almost impossible to do. But you have to keep the fluids in you, and and it's still going to take a toll on you, but you try to prepare for it the best you can. But yeah, when you're younger, it's not as hard as it. The adrenaline keeps you going.
Well, I think really appreciate you joining us. I think that everybody's in the chat really appreciates all your knowledge and just everything. So I really appreciate you coming on. I do got to say one thing for myself. One of my favorite racing memories. Maybe it's kind of random, but when you won in the first time in the 69K at the Summer Nationals, it was like 105 degrees at Williams Grove, and the place went nuts. It's probably my all-time favorite racing memory. So I want to thank you for that.
Well, you guys asked me about one of my memories of, and I discussed it later, but probably when I won the Grove National after Greg's passing, hearing the crowd,
yeah,
while we were still racing, when I took the checkered, stuff like that. That's special, and that's the stuff that you just love about our sport and the fans, and we by far have the best fans in the world. Put our fans up against anybody. Now, can they be rude and mean and cruel sometimes? Yes, sure. But I mean, they're just really the great fans. Our fans show up when it's snowing, and we
die hard.
Our fans show up in February, we go racing. Our fans show up in November, we go racing. There's nowhere in the country that does that.
Nope.
And I think we're very fortunate. We live in an area that we can do that. And we're just very fortunate. We have had owners over the years that help build that and do that. And, we've lost a few really good owners in the last probably couple of years, but, we got some new ones coming in, hopefully. And, there's always somebody that you don't know that's, hopefully become an owner and, become the next Weichert, Dyer, Hamilton, Harsh, that gives guys, a chance to go race.
100% right. And somebody mentioned, I've seen it a couple times in the chat. One of the most memorable races. I was not a Williams Grove regular until the last few years when I got into the photography thing and really went there weekly. Was the race where the wing collapsed and you won. And
yeah,
I mentioned it on the show a couple weeks back, and I said, does anybody remember who finished second and could have forced the issue and didn't? It was Greg Hodnett. He was right on you that night.
Yeah, him
right
and Danny.
And Danny, and he could have forced the issue and didn't. And I have to ask, how the hell did you do that?
It's the funny thing, not funny. I mean, the thing about when it first happened, I slowed way up because I wasn't sure what was going on with the wing. I thought it was just collapsing and I was going to pull off. Well, then I realized didn't seem like it was moving anymore. It was whatever it was. And I just said, okay, we just keep going. Well, the funny thing about it, they couldn't beat me down the straightaways because I had so much drive because of how the wing got caught in the car. Now, I couldn't get in the corner hard with it, and they would eat me up. But the flip side of it, they all knew where I was going. They knew I was going to run down, and I probably was going to cross because it's just what it was going to do. And they couldn't get a position on me, because I would beat them off the corner. And, him and Danny, you watch that now. I mean, they're dicing back and forth behind me up the backstretch trying to figure out where to go, and they just could never get a position on me. And they both did, race clean, and which I've always, I've never had nothing, with Greg or nothing with Danny. And I mean, realistically, I've never really had much issue with anybody I've raced against, Fred or Todd Schaefer or anybody. I mean, we would have our run-ins every once in a great while, but when you race as much as we do together, you're going to have that. But very few times we ever had big issues. And, just sometimes the guys are all smart enough to know where you need to be, where you don't put yourself in a bad spot. And, normally knows if somebody's sliding you could tell when the guy's coming, if, he's going to come up in front. Well, let's turn and go back underneath. And you don't try to beat him around and run over his right rear then. You know what I mean? So, that was a pretty wild race. What was funny about that is how kind of happy everybody was in Victory Lane. Like, them guys. And, like, it was just a fun race. Right. Everybody enjoyed it and all. So.
Nobody had ever seen anything like it before. I mean, really, like, in this era of, like, something happens like that, it's hard to hang on to with a front wing that's messed up. And Williams Grove, no less, with the aero and the sensitivity and his wing speed, like, it was unbelievable. I sat in the front stretch and I'm like, did I just see this? Did this really just
It puts a
happen?
lot
Like,
of downforce in the car when it did that.
oh, it was like
Yeah,
twisted up
yeah.
and like,
It put a lot of downforce in the car. Now, the bad part about it is, fortunately, it stayed just where it was and didn't come off. I mean, it would come off
amazing too.
But
Yeah.
after I slowed up a little bit and took back off it, okay, we'll try to see if we can make this to the end.
Try to go to the end. One of the things somebody just mentioned here that you and Danny are pretty decent friends. At least I think everybody thinks that. Do you ever give him shit for the things he says, or do you just kind of play along with it? Where do you stand on that? As like, are you like do you have to play like?
I think and me and Danny just talked about this a little bit. Over the weekend, Friday, we talked about this a little bit. So, actually, me and Danny golfed. This has been the first me and him golfed in a long time together. The other Monday, and we actually had a discussion about this. About sometimes he opens his mouth when he shouldn't open it. I'm pretty quiet and pretty laid back. I don't comment on stuff that don't really pertain to me to say. And so on Friday at the Grove, he was asking me, was I upset with him or not? I said, Danny, could have just kept your mouth shut. It really didn't matter. It don't matter. It's not. And you have to love. To me, he's a little bit like Fred. There's a love-hate relationship with fans. Fans love Danny for who he is, and fans hate Danny for who he is.
Yeah.
Fred Raymer was the same way. One of the best race car drivers that are ever strapped in one of these things. But how he acted at times and what he said at times would have half the fans mad at him, the other half loved him. Danny's a lot like that, but Danny has social media. Fred never was on social media. So
it's a different world, right?
It's a different world
there, but we're in a different era.
He has his opinions. He thinks he's right a lot of times. I think he could have handled it differently. We had that discussion. I won't tell you what we discussed, but we had that discussion, and but no, I kind of gave him a little shit for doing it. I don't think I seen a comment on there was asking me about the wing stuff.
Yeah.
It don't make that kind of difference. It don't make that kind of difference. Do I think they were cheating? No. The picture that he actually posted wasn't even from BAPS. So, I mean, I know. Right. Yeah. But all of our wings do that. Everybody's wings in the country does that. You can look. Yeah, I was down that road in the 69K where people made a comment jokingly about our wing, and it kind of become a big deal. You know what I mean? All of our wings do that. I'm fortunate enough to have information. A dish wing to a flat wing is only like 30 to 40 pounds of downforce more. Okay, now I'm talking a true dish wing. So let's say they were cheating. Let's say they gained them 10 pounds of downforce. It's like 0.2% of what the wing does, percentage-wise. It's not the difference between winning or losing or running fifth or anything like that. It's still, it's still what it is. I mean, you still have to have really good race cars. I remember Danny showing up at Bridgeport, and if Danny's listening, he can text me later or call me and give me a blast of shit. But Bridgeport did open rules one year where you could run any tire you want, open wings, whatever, and Danny showed up with dish wings and open tires and didn't win the race. So if it's that big of a deal, why didn't he win the race? Because you still have to have your car right. It don't.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And the 1A was the best race car at BAPS on Sunday. The kid did an unbelievable job. I give him all the credit in the world. I probably was the first driver outside the Victor Lane to congratulate him. He did a wonderful job. He deserves it. It showed when he showed up Eldora.
I was just going to say, it looked like he was going to repeat.
Drove by gravel in the dash.
Yeah.
One of the best cars in the country.
Yeah.
And blew up. But so, I mean, to make it about something else, to me, was a little bit over the top from Danny.
Yeah, and listen, I've always wondered too. Listen, it's Outlaw Week, and it's time to stir it up and get things talked about. I'm here for that. But we got to find the right topic, right? I think let's find the right topic at the right time. So, but I'm not allowed to have an opinion.
I give Danny credit though. He believes what he believes, but he sticks behind it too. He does.
For that.
For the people that don't like Danny, he does some great things in our sport. The video of him hopping out of the car, pulling Carol out of it when it was on fire. That's not the first time he's ever done.
No, it's not.
So, for much as you might dislike him for what he says or how he acts, he's still a good guy.
Yep.
He does a lot. He does a great job with promoting and helping promote. He's involved with the Weikert race.
Yep.
The Bridgeport deal he helped promote last year with Doug Rose was a huge success, I think, from their standard, from Doug's standard, from how he's been trying to do it. He does a lot of really good things. He just needs to keep his mouth shut every once in a while.
I want you to get out of here and thank your sponsors. But one of the things I've observed over the years is how much you have complimented Anthony and his growth. Is that something that you intended to sort of kind of take him under your wing, mentor? I know you guys are close. I see you guys talk. Or do you even mentor him at all? Or is just say, I'm observing and starting to make
it a little bit comes from, he's always been a likable kid. Always been very nice, polite. Race Port Royal, I raced Port Royal. Then when they had their little issues and I drove the car, I've become a better relationship with the father and the mother and Joe Mooney and everybody there. You know what I mean? And I think he's very, very talented. I think he don't get the credit sometimes for his ability because of the financial end of it.
Right.
You know what I mean? But he works hard at it. He pays attention. He watches the videos. He's learned to run both lanes. And that can be very hard to do sometimes. He's become very good in the slick. He's just become an all-around racer, good racer. And I'm happy to help anybody. I had, when I grew up, racing, you could ask drivers, they would help you. And I'm just happy to help anybody. I'll help anybody. I mean, that wants their help. I'm not shy about that. But he's just a very good kid, and he's very talented, and I just think he's got a bright future in front of him. And just like anything else in life, he had a little bit of a learning curve there with the split, but it probably was good for everybody involved a little bit. Sometimes that Anthony left and his stock went down a little bit. He didn't run real good, and and come back and got fast again. So it was just it was a bad situation for the family deal, but that stuff happens. But looks like everything's going good right now.
Nice.
Two quick questions. How do you feel about your chances this week with the Outlaws coming in, and how do you feel about our chances with the weather?
With the weather?
Yeah.
Well, I think Friday, Saturday's good. At least the last I looked at. That's like
it depends what weather app you look at now.
We've had for Friday, Saturday in a long time.
I know.
I think I haven't really looked at Wednesday. I knew tomorrow wasn't very good looking. I didn't look at Wednesday.
Wednesday looks pretty good.
Yeah, I think Wednesday and Thursday's chance of rain again.
Yeah.
But so I think they were smart for canceling like they did early for tomorrow, because it's put down a lot of water here in the last 4 hours. And so I think weather-wise, I think we're going to be okay, hopefully. My chances, I think we can be okay. We just have time good. That's everybody. You don't matter who you are. Look at Larson the first night at Texas. I'm 15th. I think he started 13th, ran 9th, and didn't pass a car. 4 cars in front dropped out, and he ran 9th. And then he was second the next night. You have to start up front to run up front. And I think we I feel better today than last year at our speed and all, but you truly don't know where you're at until they show up. I think we can be okay. I think a lot of guys locally can be okay. I just, you don't know until they show up. But yeah, I'm happy where we're at right now. I think we have stuff we can work on, which we're going to find out this weekend. But I think once they get out of town, there's some things I want to go work on with the engine program a little bit and some other stuff. They gain some speed when they come back. But all in all, I'm feeling better right now than I did last year this time.
Well, listen, they leave, but it's not long till it's Weichert weekend. So you got 3 days to get ready for that. It's coming soon. We're
fortunate enough to have a weekend in between. Hopefully Mother Nature lets us race. Because Danny did that post and that's one thing we have not raced in here. And for guys like me, not Anthony or Danny, because they raced in Florida and they have more races under their belt. But me, Troy,
Logan Wagner.
Well, he probably won't. Well, I don't know if they were coming to the Grove or not. I don't know.
Probably not the Grove. Probably, but for Weichert even, they haven't.
But the Weichert, everything. We haven't raced enough to really kind of get our shit dialed in. And I just think, you're going to find out, I think Port Royal, if we time good, Logan, me, Anthony, all of us guys, we're pretty good up there when it's slick. And the high limit guys are, there's a few of them guys that can get around that place when it's slick. I can tell you right now, Aaron Reitzel, when he comes in, is going to be tough. He's working very, very good. Very good. And he loves Port Royal. He can get around Port Royal very well. Rico is another guy that can get around Port Royal very well in the slick.
And Tyler Courtney started to figure out Port Royal here fairly
he's
recently.
Been pretty good at Port. I mean, when he first went wing racing from non-wing, Port was like the best track he had. So he's pretty tough there too. But
no doubt,
Aaron is really fast. I mean, if it wouldn't be for some bad luck, he'd be pretty up in the points of maybe leading them right now.
Probably.
You take his stuff at Vegas, getting hit in the face and stuff, and I mean, he's really fast right now.
Yeah, he's been good at Port too, so it'll be interesting when they come in. Again, thank you so much for joining us. Wish you the best of luck this week. You want to give a shout out to some sponsors and then who helps you get to the track week in and week out?
Well, I just like to thank everybody that helps us. I mean, we have a lot of people that help us. The crew guys that they all work for a living, so it helps. It's tough when those guys they show up and go to the races and work 9 to 5 jobs during the week, and just everybody, Barry Shearer, his wife Lynn, and Jim Schreiner for helping this year, my family, my son, just everybody. I have a comment here. Somebody asked me, want to know if I like Logan Wagner. I get along with anybody in all racers. I respect the shit out of everybody. Me and Logan got something in common now. We both got fired in the 69K. But no, Logan, it's funny because I think Logan gets a little bit of bad rap because
I agree. Yeah,
I agree.
He's never raced anywhere besides Port. He's never got his laps. It goes back to the lap thing. So I think he kind of gets a little bit of rap as because he's a one track wonder or whatever they want to call him,
but even when he has the opportunity to go out to Lernerville, he
runs pretty good out there because you know why? Because he raced out there in his own car some.
Right.
Yeah.
He has some laps around that place. The Grove is tough. The Grove is tough if you don't have laps around. There's nobody. I mean, even Larson struggled at Williams Grove when he first come in here. It's just a hard place. Especially back a few years when it got slick and stuff. I just think it's a hard place. You need laps around the place. It's a tricky place. I think the Grove and Knoxville are like the two trickiest racetracks to run because Knoxville is a beast of its own because you have to be able to run the bottom, run the berm, and just kind of it's so technical down there. It's hard to run. And the Grove is a short track with quarter-mile drag strips. on the ends
Yeah.
of it. So it races way different than what a lot of people. The Grove is so easy to overdrive that place. I've had a few young outlaw guys comment to me about they were a little better there now because they learned to slow up. You can just overdrive that place so easily. And even in qualifying when it's wet, you can do it. So it's just, I just think those two racetracks are very hard racetracks to learn to race, and you have to race them to do it.
The line that you run at Williams Grove that you've kind of made famous in 3 and 4, that sort of like cut across to exit. I still don't see a ton of guys do it regularly. You would think after decades of you making that work, more guys would emulate it. Is it something that you found that works for you and other guys? I've seen it, but I don't see it as regularly as like I've seen you be successful with it. Or maybe am I missing it? And you see more guys doing it than I think.
No, I think it's two things. I think one's chassis, car setup, how I like a car compared to probably a lot of other people. The other one's my driving style. I don't use brakes. I'm not driving with brakes.
That's insane to me. I've heard that before, and I've never seen your brake.
Everything's with my right foot, and not I use brakes, but I don't use brakes like Anthony used brakes or like Gravel or whoever all these other guys learned to race with brakes. I never learned to race with brakes. I mean, let's be honest here. When I started racing, the brakes on the car barely slowed you up coming in the pit areas. They weren't very good. So I just never learned to race with brakes. I use everything with the right foot. And I think in some instances, that's a big advantage for me. The flip side of that is some instances it's a disadvantage for me too. I think that hurts me in like on starts and restarts. Maybe when I get real tight, I don't get the brakes drug hard enough to keep the car loaded, stuff like that. But when it comes to driving the slick, I think it's my biggest advantage of everything I have because I don't unload the car. I don't get the car unloaded. Give you an example, when my son tested last year, he uses a lot of brakes in his micro, especially non-wing. They have to. He's using a lot of brakes. I can see him using the brakes hard in the sprint car because I can see by what the car is doing. He's on the brakes hard, but it gets unloaded. Then it gets he unloads it, then gets it loaded with the brakes. But it's hard to do that around other cars to me. I just never raced that way, so it's all right foot. So I mean, I tell everybody like at Port Royal, I might once I get in the corner, I might not move my foot until I'm halfway down the straightaway. Never move it. It's the same position the whole way through the corner and off the corner and until you get going down the straightaway where you can give it some throttle. I just think when you unload cars and load cars, it gets the car unhappy. So if you just kind of keep it, let it roll the corner, let it float. And at the Grove, I can make a car roll the corner really nice by just letting it go, letting it roll itself. I'm not in there trying to drag the brakes and getting it loaded. I'm not, my foot's not on the throttle and off the throttle and on the throttle and off the throttle. And, you just kind of keep it rolling. And I don't think I could teach it to somebody. I just don't think you could because it's a different era. I mean, all these kids nowadays learn to run with brakes that I know of. I never raced go-karts. I use a lot of brakes in go-karts, so I never raced go-karts growing up. So I just never learned to do it. But it's just I think it's my advantage in the slick, and I think it's my disadvantage in other situations. You know what I mean?
Well, and
it's just hard to figure that out. Just kind of funny story. So we talking about the brakes. So we went and we were in Vegas over Christmas one year. My son, we went and did a exotic car driving experience where you could go run as fast as you can in them. You had a passenger that had a brake pedal. That's all that guy had. You controlled it. It was a road course. We run up to 160 mile an hour on it. You can run as fast as you want. They let you go as fast as you couldn't go. And the hardest thing for me was when I first started making my laps was I didn't get on the brakes hard enough. And once he had me, he would scream at me, brake, and yell at me hard because I would just kind of get on him, and softly. And he said, get on him. When you get on him, get on him. And I mean, I knocked lap times off in no time then when I started doing that. But it was just like, we kind of chuckled because, and the guy used to race late models, dirt late models. That was my coach or whatever you want to call him. So we had a good conversation. And he could tell I'm not used to racing with brakes because just how I started driving it. I just didn't use the brakes that hard on it. And it was fun. And it was fun. It was a learning experience, actually. It was pretty neat. But yeah, it's just one of those deals. Like it's just everybody has their unique stuff, that they do a little different. And I think that's just one of those things that for me is just how I learned to race. And it's my advantage in the slick and probably my disadvantage in other situations. But, it's done me well over the years.
Yeah, and I think it suits well at Port Royal too, running that line in the middle that some guys aren't there, and you get some air on the wing. You can run where others aren't. It really suits when it's right, and when it's right, it's right. And do you think that's also why you had such immediate and very high efficiency success rate in the 69K? That car worked with your style?
I think I've known all along because I raced against Donald, a good bit of my career. That car and how I like a car to feel. I always said I could drive that car. You know what I mean? It was just, I could look at that car and go, I can drive that car. Now you don't know until you do it. But
sure, basically
when I hopped in, it was, pretty darn good from the start. It fits my style, fits my smooth style. Our driving styles were a lot alike, other than I would run up more than he would, in his prime compared to my prime. So, it just fit us well. And it kind of showed me the flip side of that is, the couple years before that I struggled. When I got in that car, it kind of told me where I was struggling at as far as with the other cars. And, as an experienced racer and guy, I know where I need to be now. I just have to find it. We're close, but we're not there yet, but we have to find it.
Did you watch Texas with Christopher Bell in the car this past weekend? Were you able to watch some of that?
Yes.
Did you see how hard, like in the feature before they kind of broke and fell out, how uncomfortable that car kind of looked on the right? And
that track was way wet. That's not that's not their forte. It never was with me in the car. That car is hooked up, made to be hooked up. It's really tight. Christopher was really tight. And also the other problem he had was on the first start, he gained 2 spots, but that lap didn't get counted. Next start, he lost a couple spots. Then they had another restart. When the farther back you get in the dirty air, the tighter the race cars get. So he was already, the farther back he went, the worse he was going to be.
Yeah.
I just know that car.
It looks broken, and it might have been broken, but it looked broken.
I just think it was so tight he couldn't drive it, and he just pulled off. But I don't know for sure. I haven't talked to nobody.
Right.
But
agreed. I was like, man, that thing looks like a handful.
Yeah, it's just how it was and is. But that thing went out front as a rocket ship, and Bell in Florida. I was there the first night of Volusia County. And he couldn't believe how good that thing was, and and it's a fast race car. They work very hard at it. Donald, forget Davey. Donald puts his heart and soul in that thing, and he works hard on it. I mean, it just it's his baby, and with Davey there, it's just it's what they do, and they're very smart at everything they do. They're very picky about everything they do. And some of it, they can do all that because they don't race every week. I think some of that last year with Logan, they were running every week, which kind of, for me, seemed weird. But that might put them behind maybe a little bit. And, where they just, couldn't do what they normally do week in, week out, or, when they have a couple weeks off to prepare.
Yeah,
right.
They always were prepared, and they still are. They when it comes to tires and that stuff, he's the most prepared guy in the pit area.
Last thing for me, what's it going to be like when you get to run a race car with your son?
I don't know. We talked about me racing a micro. We talked about that from the time he started. I don't know. I probably won't do the micro deal because I can't beat him. So I couldn't help. Like originally, I was going to hop in it, see if I could help him. I don't think I could do that because it's going to be so slow. So everything I told him before, like it will be too tight for me, and I wouldn't be able to help you because this is going to be too tight. Anything I ever driven, like when I drove a midget years ago, they were just too tight. We just kept freeing up. The guy couldn't believe me. We kept freeing up and got faster. So because I just drive them too straight. But people I've become friends with a Hyper asked me when we was going to race him, and I said, well, my best place to race him would be with a wing on because without a wing, I wouldn't stand a chance. With a wing on in Path Valley. The problem is that's his best racetrack. So,
yeah, he's good there. I've watched him a couple times. He's fast.
So, it'd be neat to race together in the 410s, maybe down the road if we ever happens. If it's not, I'll just be happy if he gets to do what he wants to do. Races sprint cars, down the road, and hopefully, he'll be able to accomplish that and do it someday. But I don't need to race with him. I don't have to.
Fair enough.
I don't know if you guys have kids or not, but if you do, you understand. We just want them to succeed. It don't matter about me. Can he beat me in a sprint car? No. Can he beat me in a micro? Probably yes. That's why he ain't gonna race micro against me.
Listen, if you jump out of it by the time he's ready to get in, you can always say you haven't beat me in a sprint car. You can hold on to that forever. That's okay.
Yeah, I can. See, that's the nice thing about it. If you don't put yourself in that position where you can, it won't happen.
Exactly.
I got one comment that came through that I have to ask you. It's from Curtis Spoonhour. Had to laugh out loud watching Lance's face as Amish guys was kicking his sprint car tires at a sponsor event. You know anything about this? There's very...
Oh, I wonder if is he still online? I wonder, are you talking about at Drohan Bricks? Is he online?
Responds here.
He's still here. That'd be great to find out.
He did just comment on something else in here.
So, our one sponsor, Drohan Brick, he does a open house singing our cars there.
It was in Mount Joy.
Yep, that would have been Drohan Bricks. Yeah, because they have Amish people that they do, they deliver a lot of sand and stuff and bricks and stuff to people. So there was a bunch of Amish there. Yeah. So it's always neat to me with the Amish because there ain't nobody works harder than them people.
Oh, yeah.
I would not want to get in a fight with any of them kids. They'd whip your ass, how strong them boys are. But just how they are out in the general public, like how they just take stuff in and look at stuff. And you can just tell they're trying to figure something out. They're trying to learn. They're not, but yeah, that's fun. But now I see a ton of Amish, in our area going to Port Royal and back. And it's tough. But yeah, there was a bunch of Amish there at his open house.
Awesome.
I just thought that was interesting, like a very random comment. I had to ask it. Again, thank you so much for joining us. This is a blast. This is something that me and Jay-Z will never forget. So really appreciate you coming on. Great. Best of luck this weekend and hope to see you in Victory Lane.
All right. Thanks, guys. Anytime.
Thanks, Lance. Take care.
Lance Dewease, everybody. That was awesome.
Dude,
how about it?
I don't even know what to say. If anybody enjoyed that, if you didn't enjoy that, you're crazy. Like him, don't like him. I don't care. I don't think he's ever had people that didn't like him. I'm sure there was, but I didn't grow up as a Lance Dewease fan. Like I cheered when he won. I was a Fred fan. I was Fred. It didn't matter who beat him. I didn't root for them. I have come around to root for Lance Dewease, good, bad, or indifferent. And we've said it on here many times to appreciate what you're watching. Like
Yep.
that this has been a thing for so long. That was one of the coolest interviews. People that we've talked to, and we've done a few of these. Man, that was the coolest thing. I private messaged Jimmy for anybody still here. It's something I'll probably never forget.
Yeah, that was
Never,
awesome.
never forget. And it'll be on my phone for repeat, for watching, downloading, as long as I can remember. That was fucking cool.
Yeah, that was great. I was gonna tell him if he ever sees a stupid idiot, drunk idiot running through the Port Royal infield, trying to run with him, pointing. That's this guy right here. If you ever see that, so.
That's that guy over
there. Let's just go over a couple of results and take a look at this weekend here. It's rain outs, everything.
That's your
Pretty much
recap.
everything.
Have a good night.
Yep. Williams Grove got hot laps and time trials in, but other than that, everything else got rained out. You did have the World of Outlaws at Eldora on Friday night. David Gravel got the win over Donnie Schatz, Cole Macedo, Logan Schuhart, Buddy Koford, and got a shout out Zach Hampton, man. He was so good. He was battling Donnie Schatz for second. He looked like he might have been better than Gravel if they got to the point. Like he looked really good. He went from eighth to third.
Eighth to third
in the dash.
They said it was the most dash spots gained in an event in a dash all year.
Yeah, and so he lost a couple spots right there at the end because the top really came in and the bottom kind of went away. But man, he was running that bottom better than anybody else. David Gravel, though, what else is there to say? I know he was on the Chaz last night. He called in because he was being accused of cheating and something in his helmet because he moved where Donnie moved and all this stuff. David Gravel's just good, man. I don't know if he needs any of that help, to be honest. He's just in that car, and he's just that good, especially at these tracks like Eldora. He's going to be a huge threat here this week. I would not doubt if he brought down 2 out of 3. I hate to say it, but he could. He's been so consistent, and now he's showing some speed on these big tracks, and that's when he's probably at his most dangerous. Ashton Torgerson took the lead from, as we said when we were talking with Lance, took the lead from David Gravel, blew up during the dash. Really unfortunate. Would have been cool to see what he could do there. Any thoughts from this? Any other thoughts?
No, I wish Eldora got them both in. I like watching premier divisions at Eldora. The Kings Royal's fine. It's fun. Any normal night at Eldora is cool. Like Kings Royal at this point is. Listen, I'm not going to downplay it, but it just did drag. It's a long time till we finally get to the like the Knoxville Nationals. It's a long time till you finally get to the A main. This is fun to me. This let's race two nights. I wish they got them both in.
At USAC too.
Man, the more they race at Eldora, the better it is. I love that place. I got to get there in person. We got to be able to plan this more ahead than like 4 days, like we were going to try. We got to plan ahead and say we're going to Eldora. Let's set the time aside and let's go. Shame on us for not being there, but man, I like watching races there.
Maybe go to 4 Crown later in the year. I know I can't do Kings Royal, but maybe 4 Crown, man. At least one of the days would be cool. Definitely need to get there. Looking at, again, Saturday night ended up getting canceled. Looking at the point standing, nothing has changed. Gravel still in the lead, stretches out his lead a little bit over Logan Schuhart, Carson Macedo, Buddy Koford, and Sheldon Hodenshield. High Limit, their Wednesday show got canceled. They did get both of these in Texas, though, Thursday and Saturday. Thursday night, though, Brent Marks with the win. Was a very heavy track, but he was the fastest out of everybody. Over Brad Sweet, Sam Haferteep, Chase Randall, and Tyler Courtney. Landon Crawley, plus 11 up to 7th, was pretty crazy to see. And Tanner Thorson was the hard charger, 22nd to 10th. How about Brent? How about your boy Brent?
Hey, listen, he gets around that place. I don't understand it. I don't know why. But that was the night. If you're ever going to start on the pole, that was the night to start on the pole. So we'll take it and move on. So he needed it. I know, like I said, in talking sort of, listening to the interview with Jeremy Elliott, listening to his Victory Lane interview. I think that was needed more than any of us could understand. I haven't talked to him, but just listening to that interview before the week, listening to the Victory Lane interview, I think him and that team needed that more than any of us could ever understand.
Yeah.
And take it, move on. They're going to have a few more races. They got a big month of May ahead. Hopefully there's weather cooperates and they'll be back here at Port Royal soon. High limits ready to get rolling.
And then Saturday night, Rico Abreu over Kyle Larson and Brad Sweet. Sam Haverty, 2 top 5s here. And Corey Day was 5th. Reitzel, Marks, Baston, Peck, and Casey Kane round out your top 10. Darren Pittman in the 69K was, I think he had some type of failure, didn't he? Or something. He had to pull it in or something. I can't remember what.
Pittman? You know what? I don't know actually, because I don't remember.
I know Christopher Bell had problems on Thursday, and then whatever happened on Saturday, he had to come from the B main. So, I can't remember exactly what happened, but
I woke up, watched some of the feature, and went to bed. So I think I was like in and out of like consciousness when this was going on.
But yeah, I mean, packed house there. I what they're doing with these NASCAR weekends, especially at the NASCAR track, I think is putting good eyes on the sport. No matter what you think about it, I think it's good for the sport. At the end of the day, it helps turn casuals into dirt fans, and vice versa. You know what I mean? So, they'll be doing the same thing with Kansas this week. They won't be at right there at Kansas, but they'll be in that area. We'll get to that here in a second. But good win for Rico, beating out Kyle Larson there. Pittman had a flat tire. Thank you, Harry.
That's right. I do remember seeing that. Details. Sheesh. I do remember seeing that.
Point standings. This got shooken up quite a bit because they haven't raced in a while, but Brad Sweet still stays on top over Tyler Courtney. Brett Marks moves himself up into 3rd. He was 5th. And then Rico Abreu 4th and Aaron Reitzel 5th. Casey Kane moves all the way up to 6th. Justin Peck, Chase Randall, Spencer Baston, and Tanner Thorson round out your top 10. Casey Kane's been super impressive, man. I got to say, I did not expect this performance as fast as he's been out of him, because he's been so inconsistent. He has the equipment, he has the speed. It just never seems like he could be. He's been putting top 10s together, and he just hasn't really done that in a while. So, really impressive what that 9 team is doing.
Green.
Other winners, we did get one race in Friday, and that was Selinsgrove, and what was a wild one. Greg Satterley won the super late models, but there's all sorts of stuff that happened. You had Austin Berry, I guess, came out as they were coming to green from the pits and then there was other big wrecks. It sounds like a crazy one. Go check out my race pass. Bert Wojcik, he did the write-up and everything in detail, but glad to see that they got their entire event in. It just sounds like there was a lot of stuff that happened. Yeah, and then let's take a look at this week. It depends. Like I was saying with Lance, it really depends on which weather app you look at. Obviously, tomorrow already got canceled, and Lincoln has pushed to Wednesday, which looks beautiful. 73 degrees, partly cloudy, doesn't really look like any rain, so should get the whole day to be able to dry everything out, because we've gotten a ton of rain here the past 5-6 days now. And it looks like we're going to get more tomorrow. Friday, Saturday, it really depends on what apps you look at. The one AccuWeather, what I kind of made this off of, we're definitely going to get rain Thursday through into Friday. It's going to depend on how quickly that moves out and how much rain we get. Some are calling for over an inch of rain over Thursday through Friday, possibly into Saturday. And then there's others that are calling for just a quarter of an inch of rain, and it's out of here by Friday late morning. So I'm hoping it's the latter. I'm hoping it's moving out early. But there's definitely going to be rain on Thursday. Like we know that. So hopefully it all moves out and we have a full Friday, Saturday, full Outlaw weekend, Morgan Cup, So I'm hoping this isn't true. I'm hoping it's like the other forecast, but it looks like it'll be about mid 60s. Saturday could be better, but in the 70s, around 70. A little bit chillier at night. It's going to be wet just because of all the rain that we've had, and then you're going to get quite a bit of rain right before the weekend again. So we'll see how that plays out. Fingers crossed that we get all three in. So again, Gettysburg Clash, $40 to get in. Wednesday night, not tomorrow night. So I think if you use the key, if you want tickets, you can get $5 off if you use the code word PA Posse. So make sure you do that. If you want tickets, you can get $5 off on their app or on the website or whatever. And then the Morgan Cup, night 1 and night 2, again, $40 to get in. General admission. All these can be seen on Dirt Vision. I'm excited. Let's go back to Lincoln. Who do we think? Let's just kind of predict the top 3. You want to go first?
No.
Okay. I'm going David Gravel to win. Gravel, Schuhart. I'm going to go Cole Macedo. Top 3.
Whoa.
I think we do end up having about 3 posse guys, but probably in the top 10.
I'm going to do Gravel, Macri, Sheldon.
Oh, yeah. My bad. I kind of left Macri out.
It's tough. Not. I think Logan will be there. I think Carson will be there. I think Baylog could if he times well. He does do well at these short tracks, but I'm going to take Gravel, Macri, Sheldon.
I think Cole Macedo, I think this track will suit him.
Sheldon led this race. Sheldon led in October until he hit the wall and took himself.
And he won here 2 years ago.
He's won before.
Yeah,
Gravel's won before, right? Macri's won a lot of races. So Sheldon always tends to show up and do well here at Lincoln. It's sort of his kind of track. So that'll be my 3 for that.
We got Santos saying Gravel, Macri, Schuhart. Marie says Gravel, Logan, and Macedo. Everybody's kind of picking Gravel right now. I mean, it's hard to pick against them right now.
You're kind of like, you're missing it probably.
Macri, Gio, and Danny, says Brandon. Gio's another sleeper. Yeah.
Gio is good here, but listen, Buddy's won a race at Lincoln.
Yes.
He's not a slouch here.
Yeah. Danny is definitely a dark horse.
I mean, yeah, he has to be in the conversation, right? To like, it's got to go right. He doesn't time. Listen, any of these guys, they don't time. There's only 1 or 2 guys who's going to drive through the field from 8th or 9th. And
Macri might be one of them.
Maybe, and Gravel.
Yes.
Just because his car's so good, right? Not many. So if you give me the time trial order, if you said, hey, don't pick until time trials are over and you haven't ran a heat, you haven't ran a dash, you haven't ran an A, I'll tell you who's going to finish in the top 3. That's all you got to know.
Yeah.
For the most part. Like that's time trials. Time trials. Get the cheater motors in, boys. Let's go.
And then, so Williams Grove, Friday, Saturday. We won't split them up. We don't have to. Picking winners here. But, again, I'm going with Gravel winning one of these. And Donnie Schatz winning the other.
Oh, you bastard.
I could see that.
You weren't splitting them up.
Huh?
I thought you weren't splitting them up.
Well, I meant like picking the top 3 for each night.
Well, you know I am. All right.
Okay, go ahead.
Night one is where, like last year, night 1 is where you get a posse winner. Night 1, Anthony Macri wins. And then second is Gio. And third is Gravel. Night 2 is Gravel, Schatz. Gravel, Schatz, Macedo.
Okay. Daniel
Unfortunately,
Lee here.
I don't love it. I don't love it.
Yeah. Dietz, Macri, Campbell, locals. Daniel Lee. I think we're saying a lot of outlaw guys, but I think you're going to see a slew then of our guys from 4th to 12th. I would
A
not doubt if
variation.
there's 6 of them in there with Dietz, Danny, Freddie, Troy, Campbell, Macri. You know, Lance,
Chad Trout. If Chad Trout times
Chad
well,
Trout, TJ.
we've seen him in a dash before.
Yeah. So, I mean, not that I don't think that they're not going to compete for wins. I think they'll be there, but I just think with the Outlaws right now, there's these 4 or 5 guys that are really they're just better than everybody in the country, to be honest. I mean, it's just
That's
kind of
their
how it
job.
is right now. And if it's gonna be locked down quick, which will probably be especially early just because of how wet everything's been. You know, it's going to take a while for the track to widen out. I really see the Outlaw guys excelling in that, you know, Summer Nationals, National Open, when the track can get a little bit slicked off, you know, before time trials. That's when it seems like it kind of evens up for the posse guys. Zierfoss is another one, man. He's been knocking on the door at Williams Grove. He's won an outlaw race at Williams Grove. He's, he's good there. So he's definitely a guy that can.
Listen, I'm not putting it past him. He times well, gets a good draw on the dash, is up front. He knows how to run fast. He knows how to be out front. I'm not putting it past any of them. TJ, Brock, Danny, Macri, Steve Buckwalter. Like, you put them out front and they get the right night and they're in the front row and they get gone. It can happen. Williams Grove is that kind of racetrack.
Doug Kreiser says the 1A. That's true. I mean, Ferguson, I'm assuming he's going to be back in that car.
Yeah, I mean, do we know?
Who knows?
Is he in it for good or?
But I mean, I would hope that they would bring him back and see what he could do here. But he would definitely be a factor. What do we think of car counts wise? I'm thinking low to mid 30s at Lincoln, like 32, 33, maybe 35. I'm thinking 41, 42 Friday, Saturday at Williams Grove.
Yeah, like Lincoln is I know there's some cars that just aren't showing up. Like, they're going elsewhere. They're not racing. This one always has had high hopes for me, but it's a weekday. There's some guys that are like, yeah, listen, that's not our gig. But yeah, I think you're right. 31 to 34 at Lincoln. Williams Grove approaches 40. They've had really good car counts this year, or just our guys. And, there's a few guys that are not going to go, but there's also a few guys that are coming out. So, I think 40 to 43 both nights is kind of probably the number. I think, but I'm no, listen, damn it, I'm not guessing anymore. I didn't say anything. You're allowed to guess. I'm done guessing.
Now they'll have 60 cars there or something like that.
Or 22. I don't know.
Marie says flood warnings for Mechanicsburg tonight. Grove should be a tricky track this week, and that's kind of what I'm saying. With how much moisture we've gotten and we're going to continue to get throughout the week.
Listen,
I just see. Nope.
I don't think Friday happens. I'm already calling. I don't think.
Yeah, Friday. That's kind of. If we get as much rain as I think we're going to Thursday night into Friday, I just think it's going to be too wet. But Saturday's looking definitely pretty promising. It's usually what the 2-day shows at Williams Grove. Friday night's always locked down, and it's gonna be chilly at night. You know what I mean? It's not gonna be that warm, so it's not gonna dry out quick. Not like it would in the summer, but it's always Friday's usually always locked down, and then Saturday you kind of see it widen out a little bit. But if we don't get that, then you just push that to Saturday.
Yeah.
But the track's been really good at Williams Grove this year, so who knows?
Who knows?
Brady Bacon back into 20 this weekend, I believe, so that'll be good. Billy Dietrich looks like he will be going out to Western PA, it sounds like. Kind of tracks, maybe fighting over getting them there. Would like to see Lincoln with the weekend show. You and me both.
Doug, you missed it. It was last October.
They'll have another one this year, too, so
and they're
Saturday later in the year. But yeah, I agree.
It's not a 2-day. It's not a 2-day, but it is a weekend.
I do think these weekday shows, obviously, they get good turnouts. It's, the BAPS one and the Lincoln one midweek, but I would always love to see go to Williams Grove for one night and then go to the other tracks another, give them a weekend show. But either way, it works out for all the tracks at the end of the day.
Yeah, it does. And I listen, I've always been a Lincoln guy, and Baps is my quote unquote home track, but man, I would love to see a 2-day Lincoln event for the Outlaws. They'll pack the place. They won't lose money on it.
Yeah.
Like, I wish that would be a thing. I've wished it for years, but Lincoln went for years without an Outlaw show. Like, people forget that potentially that are newer fans. They had it for years and years and years, and it went away for years, like a while. It came back, and it's been this Wednesday night deal. We've had a second show. We got an impromptu February show, March show. Last year we got an October show because of the Selinsgrove debacle.
Yeah.
This year we got a second one, but it's all like 1-day deals. I'd love to have a Lincoln 2-day. It doesn't have to be multiple times a year. Find a weekend, 2 days, 25 grand to win on Saturday. Let's go. Like, I don't know. I'm sure there's a lot of logistics. We don't know. We're just idiot keyboard warriors here. We don't know anything. But why can't everyone else can get a 2-day show? I don't, maybe they don't want it. I don't know.
I wouldn't mind seeing, next weekend, go Baps Friday, go Lincoln Saturday. I would love to see that. You know what I mean? I don't want it to be at the hest of taking a weekend away from Williams Grove necessarily. But if there was one weekend, it would probably be this weekend if I had to choose. But I'd rather see that. I think 2 straight weeks here in PA, you can do it instead of doing the midweek stuff.
From what I heard is Williams Grove runs to how the Outlaws go around here. So they run the show. They are king shit. So we got what we got until we don't got it. So,
and listen, it works, right? I mean, there's always hype around these weeks. Like I said, the Baps and Lincoln shows, even though they're midweek, they do great. So, it gives them good exposure, and no camping at Lincoln hurts them. I think. I thought they do have camping.
They have lots of camping.
I've camped there for this show.
They just don't have electric sites. I think that might be.
Most tracks don't. I think Port's really the only one that has electric.
That's about it. But they have camping. They have that overflow parking lot is for camping now.
I camped there 2 years ago for this very show. So they do have camping. I think you actually have to pay for it this weekend or this week. Marie Beasley says, check Logan's Facebook, having a Fan Fest Friday. They usually go to that. I think you usually go to that Rudders.
Oh, really? Oh, right off 15 there?
Yeah. I think he usually goes there. Also, the Milton Hershey thing is this week on Thursday. Pretty sure it's rain or shine. So go check that out if you're in the area. There's a lot to do with all this. I know the weather might not be great all the way through, but fingers crossed we get all 3 in. And then High Limit, like I said, they're going to be in Kansas. 81 Speedway Wednesday, Kansas City Lakeside Speedway Friday, and then Granite City, Illinois, Tri-City on Saturday. Drink it or dump it. I'm drinking it to Lance, man. That was all-timer. All-time interview. And just all-time guy.
Keep an eye out for a special guest in the waiting room there. I don't know if it'll work or not.
Yeah. And then I'm gonna dump it to my buddy Chris for not being here for that Lance interview. I'm sorry, buddy.
Man, that's tough. That is tough. That's tough work. So something we're gonna try. I don't know if it's gonna work here tonight. For anybody that's still left hanging, appreciate you all in the drink it or dump it. You guys are always putting them in there. It is time. Put your drink it or dump it in the chat. Something we're going to try here. We are going to have a guest drink it or dump it. Guest drink it or dump it. Guest.
Yeah, a guest one.
Special guest for drink it or dump it. And maybe this is something we do in the future. If this is going forward and it's just Jimmy and I, maybe we bring in some of you for a drink it or dump it segment, and you can give your drink it or dump it on camera if you would like. We may get more creative with this. We're trying this tonight to see if it works. So I reached out to one of our loyal fans. They know who they are. Well, let's see here. It's time. Let's see. Because I'll do mine and I'll leave the last drink it or dump it to our special fan of the night guest. Let's see if it works here. The 3 dots are blinking. Let's go. Here we go. Can you resend the link? I don't think the first one's working. Oh shit! Here we go again. These damn links. 1 second.
I'm gonna look into trying to get like a hotline too. I'm gonna figure that out. That'd be cool. Then you guys can call in.
So drink it, man. It's too damn good not to steal his lines, Dewease. Thank you so much for the time tonight. Again, something I'll never forget for sure. Being there's nothing to do with us, but that was awesome. Dump it. Oh yeah. That late model, a couple of those late model crashes at Selinsgrove. I've been
Gnarly.
seeing some of the pictures coming back out of that, of these cars sitting in people's yards and backyards and garages, and I don't understand. I've never seen late models, that many of them torn up that badly in one accident. I mean, I know Selinsgrove is fast, but holy shit,
Yeah.
was that a massive, but multiple accidents? I don't even know.
It sounds like two.
Also
there was one when Barry came out at the restart, and then there was another big pileup where I think Dylan Yoder flipped multiple times.
Yeah, like
which is crazy.
I'm hearing some, not so nice things going around social media about the drivers that were at fault for some of these things and getting a little bit ugly, a little bit.
Yeah.
All right, 1 second here.
Well, I want to shout out Scott Richard. It says bye from an Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Well, thank you very much for tuning in, my man. Got a big month coming up there. I guess it starts this week, right? And Randy Kopp, did Cisney and his new ride break up? Yes, they did. That did not last very long. Didn't work out. And they're both moving their separate ways. Hopefully Dylan will find something. Haven't heard anything yet, but hopefully he will find something. Aunt Bay said, promoter Jay-Z to the rescue.
No, I don't know anything. I must be an idiot. I mean, hell with good ideas and opinions.
And while we're waiting to see if we can get our very special guest in here, 2 weeks from now is the fallen firefighter race at Lincoln. Oh, we got Mandy. That's very special guest, Mandy, who's going to come in and give us her drink it or dump it. What's going on?
Hi, Mandy.
Doing good.
Welcome. Good evening. How'd you like the show so far?
Good.
Good stuff. All right, give us your drink it or dump it. The spotlight is yours. Who's your drinking and dump it tonight?
Drink it to Lance Dewease. Good show. Yeah. And Brent Marks, I guess.
Yeah,
and dump it definitely to the weather.
Yeah, it's dumping it, all right.
Most of central Pennsylvania has been in this massive drought for like 6 months, but yet we somehow can never get any races in. How's this? What's going on?
Mother Nature hates us.
It only rains on weekends. We get these nice weather days all week long. You're sitting out here looking out the windows at your office, at your house. You're doing all this stuff during the week, your lawn work, and then you sit around all weekend and hope it races, and we don't get any races in. It's not good.
Well, I was saying before, in a month from now, in June, we'll be saying, "Oh, we raced too much. There's too many races." You know what I mean?
Mandy, if we get any racing in this weekend, where will we see Mandy at the racetrack?
Williams Grove.
Hell yeah!
Awesome. Thanks for stopping in.
Who's your picks to win?
Oh yeah, what are your picks?
You know me, Lucas Wolf.
There we go. He's another one that we didn't really bring up. He's been running a lot stronger.
Had some speed. He timed great Friday night at Williams Grove. He was right up there, I think. I don't know the exact. It's hard to hear or see anything from where I'm standing half the time, but I know that it was a good time. I looked up the board and I was like, "Holy shit, that's a good time!" That was a good time. So, Mandy, do you know where he qualified?
I think he was starting second in the first heat.
Yeah, so right up there, right? So a couple heats, he was in the top 10 in time trials. So I mean, they've shown some speed at times, and hey, you never know, right? We've seen him win races, start up front, put that thing on the front row. Crazier things have happened.
You never know. All right, Mandy, thank you so much.
Thank you, Mandy.
Have a
You're
good
welcome.
night. Get to some of the other ones here. Brandon Zirk says, drink it to Lance and all his knowledge of the sport and dump it to Mother Nature for repeatedly messing up our plans to go racing. Aunt Bay, drink it to Rico winning 3 of his last 4 races. I didn't even realize that.
Yeah.
It's because it's been so long since
And he won.
he won
He won Knoxville.
Yeah, he won at Knoxville. So yeah. And dump it to Bell and Pittman, both having shitty nights at Texas. And that gosh ugly green 69K. It's very weird seeing that, but I'm sure it's a good deal for them, man. I mean, it's a cool paint scheme. It's just weird with the 69K on it. Daniel Lee, drink it to the show and having Lance on, phenomenal. And I'll agree with Jay-Z's dump it. Not a positive way to get Selinsgrove back on track with all the mess going on. I think one thing that should be positive is seems like the track and the officials there are staying vigilant and going to work on it. I know they're having their street stock division or the Roadrunner division. I'm sorry, they're going to have a meeting that because there's a lot of contention there too with like what's legal, what's not. So hopefully they could open up a little bit, get some more cars there. I'm assuming, we'll see, but I think they're trying to stay vigilant, and it's not going to be quick turnkey. It's going to be great again. You know what I mean? They've got some work to do, but I'm liking what I'm seeing, at least in terms of how vigilant they've been and how in tune they are, and what they're doing. Doug Kreiser, drink it to Lance, dump it to me for taking vacation on this rainy week.
That sucks, man.
And Randy Kopp, drink it to all our racetracks and all they deal with. That is for sure. And did they catch the truck?
Okay. Yes, they did. That's why I heard Danny came home early that weekend from I-55. They went and caught the guy. They were on the case and got the bounty. So, they came home early that night. And yeah, the second quick. Oh, Lucas Wolf, second quick overall time trials. I thought so.
Yeah.
He was second quick overall in time trials Friday night.
Marie says, dump it to Sweet's ugly car and then drink it to Mark's. Oh. I'm in the minority. I like.
But look, I watched the NASCAR race and Chase Elliott's car looked good to me.
Yeah, it's all kind of the same similar scheme. It's just
I know, but it looked awful on that sprint car. I don't know why.
I don't know.
I don't know why I hated it so much, but I thought it looked okay on Chase's car. It seemed like, I don't know. Maybe it just.
I think it was Hemrick's truck too had the same scheme and it looked fine. I didn't think it looked that bad. It's not my favorite paint scheme or anything, but everybody's shitting on it. I didn't think it was that bad.
Speaking of shitting on it, that's what it looked like. All right, keep going.
But again, Fallen Fighters race at Lincoln in 2 weeks on May 17th. Tailgate party. We will be there. We will have a live show. We're gonna talk a lot about this more next week. But just to kind of get you guys up to speed here, there's gonna be all sorts of fire trucks there. There's gonna be live music, driver meet and greets, cornhole tournament, food and beverages. The tailgate party starts at 11 a.m. So you get to the track early, have a good time all day. Hopefully the weather is good. And then there's still lap sponsorship out there, $150 per lap for the 410 sprint car feature. Lot going on with this race. We're going to go more into detail next week, but keep an eye out. We will, like I said, we will be doing a live show there. Probably, I'm thinking around like 1 p.m. ish.
We're gonna find out more too.
We'll find out more, but we will be doing a live there. So come on out and have a good time that week. So mark it down on your calendars next Saturday.
I think Chris will even be there, right?
Chris will be there. Chris will be making an appearance.
Special guest host Chris Lynn will be in attendance. That's crazy.
Hopefully he gets a ride there. He's not like walking through the woods or something.
Or a creek. Maybe he'll walk across the creek and just cool off. It might be hot that day. He might need to cool down. Listen, I just hope that there's not too much beer there that I can get in and do photos later. Like I hope it's not too much of a party.
Hey, it does look like on Saturday I was Beer Hill Gang, they have their beer dropping. So they're gonna have their van there, their new merch trailer? I don't know. But they're gonna have that, they're gonna have beer there. They're gonna have a whole thing on Saturday. So get to the track early this weekend. If you're not, I'm going to be camping there, so I'll be there. But as long as the weather stays good, but get to the track early. go have yourself a good Saturday and Friday, and obviously Wednesday at Lincoln too. So, but yeah, anything else? I want to give a shout
No.
out to Vertical for Life. They had their music festival this weekend. I know Chris was there. I wish he was here to kind of give his count of it, but it looked like they all had a great time, and did a lot to help raise some money. So if you weren't able to make it, go to verticalforlife.com. They have a bunch of stuff that you could buy there. All goes to a good cause. You could also just give donations, helping prevent veteran suicide through music, giving veterans resources for what they need for their mental health. So great job what they do over there. Any last thoughts, Jay-Z?
No, I know Chris had a good time. From basically the messages I woke up to Sunday morning, he had a great time at the Vertical for Life event. So if you missed out this time, keep an eye out for the next one for sure.
But we want to thank every one of you. This is probably one of our biggest shows, to be honest, in terms of constant viewership. So we really, really appreciate it. With ET2T merch, we're gonna be working on it and try to get some of these and some other stuff here. Probably, I'd like to, probably by midsummer. Hopefully, we're gonna be talking about it a little bit, but we're gonna try. Appreciate it. But yeah, appreciate every single one of you. We'll see you guys next Monday. If we don't see you at the race.